I'm taking a moment of silence. I'm giving you a chance here. I mean, we always have to start it out with Big Sills. Okay. You know, that was just an effort level yesterday. It was effort. That was just effort. You didn't want to be there. You didn't want to play. You didn't give a shit about anything. You didn't give a shit about the things that you had gotten you to that point. You didn't care. You did not care. You did not care. You quit. You surrendered. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, you surrendered. You just quit. This is a far bigger problem than getting your faces kicked in by the Giants. I mean, I tweeted this out earlier. When you hire incompetent people, you get incompetent results. Don't overthink this. You have incompetent coaches. And the only people to blame are the GM and the owner. That's where this goes. Those are the people that set the culture. Nick Sirianni is a pawn in this. You don't actually think that the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles and the general manager think that this is their fault. You don't really believe that, do you? That they think this is their fault. That's why when I told you this months ago, the guy in the building with the most unsafest job you can have is your head coach. Shit, this is more of a meltdown than Chip Kelly. This is like a Chip Kelly meltdown. Congratulations. Nick Pinocchio is having a meltdown just like your boy. What a disgraceful coaching job. What a disgraceful effort. It was a complete and utter, absolute, disgusting mess. From the quarterback on down. The entire organization quit. Completely quit. Surrendered to the shitty Giants. You've lost to teams in consecutive weeks with 3 wins and 5 wins. And you think you're going to go into Tampa Bay? The Buccaneers are garbage. Well, let's take a look at that for a second. Baker Mayfield had a better year than Jalen turnover machine Hurts. Jalen turnover machine Hurts. He didn't throw for 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and only 10 picks. Quarterback rating, too. The kid, Rashid White, 990. He also has 64 catches with 549. They got 2,000-yard receivers down there. Oh, we're better. Than who? Then who? That's your problem. You don't worry about yourselves. You're better than nobody right now. Actually, if you were to rank all the playoff teams, I don't think you could beat the Houston Texans. You suck. And I will not relax because I was dead on right about your fraudulent, cheerleading, bullshit artist, Pinocchio line coach. He's a bullshit artist. He is a bullshit artist. Jalen, stop being a company guy. Act like a fucking leader. Act like a leader. Got your bag, huh? Dude, I can name you shittier quarterbacks that had better passing years. Why go to the takeaways and the numbers? You got to be kidding me. Hey, you know what's funny? I hear some of them, I see some of the fucking idiots in here about Doug Peterson is coaching the fucking Jags. Your guy's coaching Pro Bowlers all over the place. $20 million receiver, first-round receiver, 3 Pro Bowlers in the O-line. You were in the Super Bowl 11 months ago. The Jags blow. Don't compare Doug turning around the Jags. Nick Sirianni is Chip Kelly 2.0. You make it sound like the Jags have a winning culture. What a bunch of dumb takes. When 11 months ago you were in the Super Bowl. Comparing what Doug's doing to what Sirianni is doing is idiotic. It's idiotic. The Cowboy game was 7-7. Then it was 10-7 in the second. Sirianni puts his hand up like he's in an MMA fight and he's tapping out. He's a quitter. He's a liar. I have no respect for that man. You watch Mike Tomlin take Mason Rudolph. Who the fuck is Mason Rudolph? To win 3 straight games to get you into postseason. That's coaching. That's coaching. Angelo Cataldi will be with us at 5:30. Gary Cobb, 4:30. Our friend Tone will be with us at 6:30. Angelo said you'd get beat in New York. Bullseye. He and I have been really the first ones since the very beginning to call Nick Pinocchio a bullshit artist. He's a bullshit artist. Hey, did your boy Hurts get the $4,000? That'd be a no. Man, they just absolutely folded their tent and quit. Dude, like I said, this is one thing if you get beat. It's another thing you've lost to the Jets, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and the New York Giants. All teams that potentially could pick in the top 10. And you call yourself a great team? Howie Roseman is an absolute horrible talent evaluator when it comes to college pro scouting or college scouting. He is horrible. In the last 2 years, what have your drafts brought you in the last 2 years? Jalen Carter for 10 games. What else? What else has his great drafting brought you? And you know why he can't be consistent? Because he misses. He covers it with money, and that's why you go into pro free agency and you drop $40 million on AJ, where you could be spreading that money around on your defense to have a balanced cap. You don't have a balanced salary cap. You got trash cans on defense. You spend all your money on offense, and then you hire a training wheels coordinator. Those coaches were not qualified, and you knew it. I mean, this is Chip Kelly 2.0. The takeaways? Problem with A.J. Brown in that game, talking shit, doing his press conference, and then fumbling. Doesn't help the cause. A.J., do me a favor. Shut up. Everybody, go play. Just shut up. Everyone, just shut up, Nick. Stop the press conferences. Don't answer anything. Go play the Bucs. Stop talking. So here's a great example of panicking in a game. It's 4th and 4. You're playing the shitty Giants. You don't get it. You give the Giants a short field, they turned it into 7. Why wouldn't you make one of the shittiest teams in the league go 90 yards to get a touchdown instead of 40? Why would you do that? You're the better team. Show some freaking patience. You can't because you're panicking and you're inexperienced. 4th and 4, you don't get it. The Giants turn it into 7. The Giants! Get this. You know what's really disturbing about that Giant game? They had nothing to play for but pride. You had so many things to play for, and you showed none and no pride. I mean, honestly, you need to have a come-to-Jesus conversation with the men in the locker room, too. Jesus, criminy, guys. You're professional football players. You might want to try to act like it. The coaches in the front office aren't going to help you. They're cowards. They're bookworms. They belong at a library. Honestly, Howie Roseman, if he wasn't an NFL guy, he'd be a streetcar conductor. The Eagle coaching staff was so pathetic. Do you know, like, do you know what I kept saying the entire game? Oh my God, I've never in my life seen a meltdown of a football team that was 10-1 in my entire life on what I witnessed this last 6 weeks. It is an absolute meltdown. I've never seen anything like this. I've never. San Francisco and the Cowboys, you know what they did? They exposed your fraudulent culture. As I said last week, here's what's happened. Do you know why you won all those games last year and you were 10-1 this year? Do you know why? Because your players are great. But then when they started to keep being put in positions of failure, they didn't want to do it anymore. Just listen to them. Vegas picked us versus the Bucs after everything. Yeah, 1.5 versus a 9-8 Bucs. Congratulations. That's quite a victory. I mean, do you understand? The players have been telling you, guys, I'm paraphrasing here, guys, no matter what's called, let's put our best effort in. You know what that's telling you? Your bosses are putting you in a position to fail. Guys, let's give our best. When you keep being put on a sinking ship, No matter how many times you row, no matter how many times you bail, the ship's going down. You can't save a sinking ship. The players now know that. The players know they're on the fucking Titanic. The only difference in the Titanic victims, they didn't know the boat was going to hit the iceberg and go down. What makes it horrible, these Eagle players know it. I'll tell you something else. Jalen Hurts doesn't have talent around him. He's Tyrod Taylor. The coaching staff is terrible and the players quit on them. Hey, can you put Prince's thing up there for me, Tone? I'd really appreciate it. If we can get Prince's super chat up there, I'd appreciate it because he did put it up there. If we can get that up, please. I just look at. I told you something that would happen in 2 years. You're a 5-win football team. The coaching staff is terrible and the players quit on them. You're repeating everything we said throughout the season. You are mad now. You're repeating everything I said, and everyone in here called me a liar. Thanks, Prince. I appreciate it. You're welcome. You're welcome, Prince. Told you beginning of the year, Nakobe Dean wouldn't work. Told you at the beginning of the year, you didn't retool your defense. Told you at the beginning of the year, you think the new coordinators are going to be as effective as last year. You guys didn't want to hear it. You're going to hear it now. Tough shit, Prince. You know, you could do too, Prince. You can go to one of those flag-waving shows if you want on IP or on the Fanatic, because I'm sure they're on their knees with Howie's knee pads and walking around with one of those siphons because they'll need to catch all the bullshit that's coming out of NovaCare. Don't worry about it, Prince. You walk around with one of those funnels and you swallow all the Eagle bullshit that they feed you. Like 20% of you in here take. All of you. Understand what I'm talking about. Hurts was Tyrod Taylor this year. Let me show you something before I get into the takeaways and the pathetic numbers. I don't even know how they killed you. Here's Jalen Hurts' year. You tell me. Hurts, 538 attempts, 352 completions, 65-4, 38-58 in 17 games. In today's NFL, 38-58 is common. 23 touchdowns, 89-1. You want me to name guys that had better passing years than this guy? Simple. Jordan Love, 41-59, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks, 96-1. Thank you, Prince. CJ Stroud, 41-08, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks, 100.8. Baker Mayfield, the guy who says sucks, 4,044, 28 touchdowns, 10 picks. Had more touchdowns and less picks than Jalen did, and a higher quarterback rating. Baker Mayfield. You would never accept anything in a win. You wouldn't in a loss. Sam Howell, 39-47, had 21 touchdowns, 21 picks. Hey, there you got me there. Derek Carr, 38-78, 25 touchdowns, 8 picks, 97-7, and I think he sucked this year. Your guy was a turnover machine. You know what's different about Josh Allen and your guy? Your guy's sensational with nobody but one receiver. You don't have anybody but Quez Watkins and the crash test dummy catching passes. He's below average. He can't read defenses. He still can't. No one will say it. You gave $50 million to a guy who can't read defenses. Say it with me. By the way, Josh Allen just won his 4th straight AFC East title. I agree. He's got to protect the ball more. I completely agree. But when Josh Allen's in a game, he's playing against himself, not against the team, because they can't stop him. That's the Eagles. When Allen's in a game, that dude plays against himself. Okay? The teams can't stop him. Him and Lamar are unbelievably gifted, talented athletes. Can you imagine that? This guy has as many turnovers as Jalen Hurts and still throws for 4,100 yards or 4,300 yards passing and has 45 touchdowns and his 4th straight AFC East title. You're right. He needs to protect the ball, but he still wins. Your guy is Tyrod Taylor 2.0. Hey, all you got to do is blitz Hurts. Blitz Hurts. I just read something. Get Jalen a better coordinator. Really? I'm here for the slander. No, real. You mean truth. No. Tyler, I didn't put up guys who put up MVP numbers. I only put up dudes who you consider Jalen better than. I didn't put the good ones up. I only put the bums up, or ones that you call bums. Seals, get Howie on the program. Hey, Phillies, he's not going to go on anybody's program. Doug Peterson, Pinocchio Sirianni is the new Doug Peterson. Do you know how they're going to fire him? By the way, that Buck game has more significance to it than just winning a playoff game. That game has career implications around it. Do you know how they're going to get rid of a guy who's put a team into the playoffs 3 years in a row? They're going to come up with some bullshit, and they're going to leak it out for all their minions that Nick didn't want to change some of the coaches, even though the organization picks the coaches. That's how they're going to fire him. They're going to lie because they're professional liars. The people that run the Eagles run a used car sale. They're like used car salesmen. They sell you a lemon. They sold you lemon coaches. What happened to the team that stomped the Dolphins? The players got fed up with the message. They got fed up with the message. They got fed up with it. Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie aren't culture builders. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts. Those are culture builders. And when you don't see those guys buying into what you're doing, that's why your culture goes to shit. Nick Sirianni and those guys have nothing to do with it. Because you know why? 2020, sabotaging Doug Peterson at the final game of the year. It's Jalen's fault that the OC calls empty on an offense. Yeah, why don't you stop and call something else? Okay? Antoine, I do love the fact that those guys do that with touchdowns. No, no, no. I saw something on Sunday. You know what that was? You take Jalen Hurts' toys away from him, he's Tyrod Taylor. Josh Allen doesn't have all the luxuries that Jalen has. He just doesn't. He's got a decent back. He's got one excellent wideout, and the rest of those guys are okay. They're Quez Watkins. Gabe Davis, I wouldn't write home about. You got 2,000-yard receivers. You got a top 5 tight end you pay $15 million to. Kincaid could be something, maybe. Okay? He's still a young player. He's in a better system? Really? He's in a better system because they put Joe Brady in there now. Hey, guys, don't ever compare Jalen Hurts to Josh Allen. That guy's a one-man wrecking crew. And once again, hey, Jalen, stand up for yourself, son. Stand up for the team. Or do something as a leader. Anything. You know, I compare him to like Jeter. By the way, I thought Jalen quit. I thought Jalen Hurts quit. I thought he quit. I thought there wasn't a person on that sideline that didn't quit. Get a better coach? What would make you think that those... Remember what I told you about Howie and about the owner? They don't care about Lombardi's. They care about power and control. They believe they won the Super Bowl in 17, not Doug. That's why they look at this problem. They look at it as those guys doing this, not them. They have no self-awareness or self-evaluation on the shitty culture. So it's clear that the coordinators in the scheme. Okay, Antoine goes, it's clearly the coordinators in the scheme. That's by design by the organization. Oh, you think there's any coincidence? Who was the very first guy to bring up Alec Halaby on our channel? Me. Josh Harris knows. Okay? He knows. Remember who Howie hung around with on becoming a good GM? Who was that guy? R.C. Slocum. When he got put in a broom closet. There's a reason Bob Myers, who's a friend of mine from the Warriors, is now part of the process in hiring a coach in Washington. They're going to hire another puppet. That's right. They're not going to bring anybody else in with quality. Same shit will happen. That's right. Until the owner steps in and does something. This is on the owner. The owner's going to have to put the kid back in the broom closet. Howie's either going to have to be put in the broom closet again or have some of his power taken from him. He's the guy I want to talk to. Nick Sirianni is a puppet. He's a puppet. You're talking to the wrong guy. I don't want to talk to people who are non-decision makers. I want to talk to people who make the decisions, who make the calls. You think that Nick Sirianni was really the guy who pulled the plug on Sean Desai? Give me a break. I've been telling you since day one. That guy has no autonomy in that locker room. You guys are going like this. The coach lost the locker room. He never had it. If this is the last playoff game, I'm going down swinging. I'm fighting tooth and nail. I'd make Baker walk the plank. Hey, it's too late. When you quit, you'll quit forever. When you quit, that's something that's in you that you can't get out of you. You just don't. If you have a quitting gene in you, that's not something that you can just have in a seance exercised. You can't. You have a loser quality about you. That's something you can't get out of you. You were born a winner. I believe you're born a winner or a loser. I don't think you grow into it. I think that's something that's an innate quality that's inside you. And it takes the great coaches and leaders to bring it out in you. These players are not going to fight for. They're not going to. You know what? You know what's going to make them play good against the Bucs? They have 70% of their will still intact. It's 70% of their will is intact. The organization has taken the championship part of their will away. That's why you've lost 5 of 6. That's why you've lost 5 of 6. Takeaways. You know what the takeaway was? 2 minutes into the game, they quit. Boy, I'd hate to go to battle with anybody that was on that football field. And I'd hate to do anything with anybody who was on that field. They were a disgrace to the Eagle uniform and the Eagle organization on Sunday. It wasn't just losing to the Giants. You were an absolute pathetic disgrace. You were disgraceful. It was a disgrace. That's right. Tone goes after the first series and knew they were cooked. How about this? You watch their body language. You're like, they're going to get beat. And this time the Giants are going to finish the deal. Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor beat you. Drew Lock beat you. Zach Wilson beat you. And the Cardinals, a 3-win team, beat you. How do you justify that? Try justifying that. Getting beat by those shitty teams and shitty quarterbacks. Guys who probably won't even be on those teams. You lost to quarterbacks that could be in the X or that UFL. How can they fix this, Sills? What do you mean, how can they fix this? My God, you know how they can fix this. You know what has to happen. The owner has to fire Howie Roseman. Or, and I'll do this, and I'll concede this about Roseman. The only way you fix this is put Howie back in his sandbox. He is here. Howie Roseman is worthy of a contract extension for the deal he cut for Jalen Hurts, for the pro personnel decisions that he makes when he makes trades and finds guys on other rosters. He's sensational at that. But when it comes to being involved in the hiring of coaches, being involved in the game plan, being involved in the scheme, being involved in the hiring of the coordinators, he's over his skis. This guy doesn't know his role. People who keep asking the question have been asleep because you know why? They're looking at it like this, Tone. They think it's Sirianni. Sirianni is a puppet. He's a puppet in this. Don't you get it? He's a puppet. They're going to hire the same guy. They're going to get a nobody. They're going to hire a nobody until the owner does the right thing. Puts guardrails on Howie Roseman. What happened this year was that, you want to know the fatal flaw? Here's what happened. The owner, with that contract extension, gave Howie Roseman too much power, and it's infected the team. And it's infected the ability to play football on Sundays because they have too much input in the front office. You have to have one clear leader in your locker room. I mean, you guys keep going like this. Well, Sirianni lost the locker room. He never had it. Here, you think Mike McCarthy has his locker room? Or do you think Jerry Jones has it? How can Mike McCarthy have it when the owner has two radio shows and does press conferences after every game and not the coach? You never hear from Mike McCarthy. You hear from the owner, which means he undermines the locker room and the authority in the locker room. If I got a problem, I'm not going to McCarthy. I'm going to Jerry. He's never had it. Told you day one. Guy's a puppet. He sits on one leg during the week on Howie's leg. And then on Monday, when he has to have his conversation, he sits on Jeffrey's leg the other day. Fire Nick Sirianni? He's the perfect head coach for those guys. I'm not firing him. They'll clean house in the coaching staff. But that's not going to fix it. Here's why. How many players do you think on defense are coming back next year? The entire linebacking room will be gone. You're going to try to throw your love at N'Kobe Nobody again. Your corners, one of them or both of them will be gone. You got Reddick back, and your safety position needs to be overhauled. You need more edge rush depth. You think you're going to retool it in the draft when you have a general manager who can't draft? He can't draft linebackers. He can't draft pass rushers. He can't draft corners. That's apparent. It's 30 years. Do you need more of a sample size? And for the record, one more time, Jeff Kerr, I'm going to go back to a comment that Jeff Kerr made, and he's right. Do you know why Howie Roseman can't have sustained success? Is because of his failures in the draft. That's why. Because when you throw money at your mistakes, you have an unbalanced salary cap. The $40 million that you spent, if you had drafted Justin Jefferson or someone even better than Jalen Reagor, that $40 million could have been spread out somewhere else on the roster. Instead, you had to pay the wideout and you get trash can linebackers. Maybe you would have offered TJ. I don't know. End of the day, though, he's a penny pincher. He moves money around. He robs Peter to pay Paul. That's what he does. I'm pointing out realities and why you're here. By the way, I'll get to what you have to do next. Okay? $30 years of underachieving. 30 years of underachieving. Shit, I'll take the Giants record in the last 30 years. At least they've won more Super Bowls than you. It's about Super Bowls. This ain't about having fair seasons to bullshit the fan base. Look at the guy in Los Angeles, Sean McVay. Look at the power he has. Les Snead and those guys give that guy so much autonomy, and look what he's rewarded him with. I don't even know how the Rams are in the playoffs. Hi, Dan from Tampa. 727 The Berg. We miss you, buddy. God bless you. Thank you very much. I found you again. You were tough on Tampa teams, too. Eagle fans are lucky to have your insight. Thank you, my friend. Hey, by the way, for the Buccaneers and the Buccaneer fans, hey, AWR, let me say this to you. That's a hell of a job by Todd Bowles. That's a hell of a job. Hell of a job. Completely saved Baker Mayfield's career. Hell of a job. It's a great coach job. If they lose to the Bucs, and quite hopefully Lurie does look at Howie this offseason and makes big changes. Wasting offense needs a defense rebuild. Here's something that you got to think about. They won't do it publicly, but they've got to bring in my opinion, why don't you bring a college personnel guy in? Why don't you hire a college personnel guy? Hire somebody who knows college personnel better. You have not been very good. Dude, you've got one wide receiver in the last 20 years in the draft. The rest of them have been average to below average. They're not going to hire a coach with any name to him. They're not. Get that out of your minds. Stop it. You guys are really crazy. Hey, you think they would hire Belichick? Absolutely not. He's not a fit in Philly. Do you want me to tell you who's a fit in Philly? Kellen Moore, Alex Van Pelt. Who else? Mike McCoy. Those are the guys you got to look at. You're making yourselves think that this guy's they're gonna bring in these they're not bringing big name coaches in. And by the way, just so you know, this is professional football. When you make $6 million a year as a coach and you shit the bed, I don't give a shit whether you like him or not. Is he doing the job? This ain't college ball. Or this is professional sports. It is a result-driven league. There's no bell curve. You guys want to do things on a bell curve. You win or lose. That's why there's a scoreboard. It's you win or lose. What people in our business try to do, they're trying to skew the lines with the political coverage, and that's the beautiful thing. You can't. You win or lose. You suck or you don't. There's no getting around it. You don't have a bell curve. Okay. Sirianni, how important is this game on Monday night for Sirianni? 3 straight years he's put a team in the postseason. Do you really think that organization is going to fire a guy who put a team in the playoffs 3 years in a row? Or do they push him out and make him quit like they did Doug? Do they push him out? Now here, we need to start watching their behavior. If you notice, Howie and the owner have been awful quiet. They've been awful quiet. Okay? And they're going to let this thing sit. They're going to let this thing sit. Okay? They're going to let this thing sit. Okay? They're going to let it sit. If come Tuesday morning, they lose, will they push him out? By the way, here's a more important question. Do the players want him pushed out? Let's say this to you. How much of the locker room do you think right now Nick Sirianni has with the locker room? How much does he have with the players in the locker room? 50%? 70%? You think the players are blaming him? How do you think the players look at him? I don't think the players are mad at Nick at all. I don't think they're mad at him at all. I do not think that they're mad at him at all. They're not. Why would they be mad at a guy who has no control of anything? Why would you be mad at that? Now, they probably don't like the stupid shit he says in public. And they probably have an ass with the way he handles himself. But other than that, I guarantee you those players have no problem with Nick Sirianni. Steichen holding Gardner accountable yesterday, saying a lot of was missing on his team. He was he was. I don't think they have a problem with Nick. I think they're funneling their frustration through Nick. Because you know why? You can't bark at your GM, but you can bark at your coach. It's easier to talk shit on your coach than owner and GM. Why? Because your coach doesn't pay you. Remember that. You're never going to talk shit on the people that pay you publicly when you're making $10, $15 million a year. So you know how you go and you know how you get at them. You talk to their boys. Hey, the coaches are doing this. The coaches are doing that. Knowing full well most of that intel comes from upstairs in Alec Calaby's room. Somebody asked me something earlier. Sills, how would you fix this? There's only one guy that can fix this. This can't be. Hey, do I think the Eagles can win this game against the Bucs on Monday? I think because the will that they still have, the Bucs are better. The Bucs have more skilled people. They're a better team than they were when you played them. And get this. You want to know something? Hey, you got 2 more wins than them. They'll make it sound like you playing better ball. When you played them, you were a better team. You're not a better team right now. You're probably as good. You're as good as the Bucs. Actually, you look like the Bucs. You just lost to the Giants. And before that, a 3-win Arizona team. You lost, get this, you lost to 2 teams with a combined 8 wins in the last 2 weeks. Don't talk to me about how good you are. You got beat 3 weeks in a row by teams not in the playoffs. And 2 teams that are in the top 10 in drafting. Make it sound like you're good. I told you 2 years, you're a 5-win team. Anybody want to take that bet still? Let me ask you this. You think you're trending to a Super Bowl or 5 wins? Do you think in 2 years you're trending to a Super Bowl or being a 5-win team like you were in 2020? You went from a Super Bowl to 4 wins in 3 years because of your GM. in his inability to draft. Veteran Stadium. Sorry, Hollywood. Flowers not. Yeah. Dude, this conversation today has nothing to do with Nick Sirianni. You guys are missing it. You're totally missing it. This is upstairs, man. This can't be fixed. Seals, these other fans don't want to admit it, but the players stopped playing for Jalen. We had a $250 million issue. Dual threat became no threat. Organizationally made the decision not to make him dual threat. And they turned him into Tyrod Taylor. Dude, Jalen's numbers are not very good this year. Now, what gives me the hope is that all the first downs and the amount of touchdowns, because he puts up there, can you coach that back into being something that we saw in 2022? I think so. But then ask yourself this. You think the organization wants to give credit to a coach for turning Jalen around? Or do you think that organization in Philly wants to get credit for turning Jalen around? Ask yourself those questions. They barely want to give Doug credit for winning the Super Bowl in 2017. They won't give credit. Hey, by the way, you know who developed Jalen Hurts? Shane Steichen. Was it Nick? They were 2-5 under his direction. And by the way, look at Nick since he said that it's his offense. They've lost 5 of 6. Since Nick Sirianni made that comment that this is my offense, they've lost 5 of 6. Hey, Nick, you exposed yourself for being a shitty play caller. Get this. You know what even makes that more obnoxious? Remember when Harvey Dent in the Batman movie went up and said he was the Batman, and Bruce Wayne didn't stick up and go, no, I'm him. And he let him take the rap. This guy's letting Brian Johnson take the rap. Dan, I'm new to watching you, but I respect that you speak the truth instead of selling more lies. Why would you sell lies when you just have to go like this? What's aggravating? Here's the aggravating part of this. Is that you have a lot of things here. You know what? I don't say this enough, and maybe I should so it lands right for you guys. Let me say this to you. There's a lot of things in that organization that are fantastic. There's a lot of things in that organization that are fantastic. I think they do a great job at scouring rosters, finding players at the bottom of rosters that are underpaid and underutilized. I really do. Sirianni 13-11 without Steichen as play caller. And Jalen Hurts has regressed into being just a dude. Seriously, man. I mean, Jalen Hurts is not a top 10 quarterback. He's barely top 15 right now. Can he get back there? With better coaching. Yes. Look at Lamar. But ask yourself one more time. Do you think the organization will give credit to a coach for developing Jalen Hurts? What Shane Steichen did with the Colts and with Gardner Minshew, do you think Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson and the Eagles would have made the playoffs with Gardner Minshew? No. They couldn't get Jalen Hurts, a runner-up MVP, to keep growing. Shane Steichen did more for the development of Gardner Minshew than the Eagles did for Jalen Hurts this year. How about that one? They did more to develop Gardner Minshew, who didn't take over until week 4. Shit, you only got 2 more wins than the Colts. You guys are making it sound like you guys are some sort of special team. Gardner Minshew is a nowhere quarterback, and they won 9 games. You have a $50 million guy, and you won 2 more games? Doesn't sound like return on investment with me. Think about that. They got 9 wins with a backup quarterback, and you paid 50 for 2 more wins. You might want to check that one out again. You might want to check that one out. I thought Carson Wentz looked great yesterday. Didn't he break some sort of Rams record for the most rushes by a Rams quarterback in team history? Beat the Niners. By the way, people are going to go like this. McCaffrey didn't play and Purdy didn't play. Yeah, well, Bosa did. Greenville played, and so did Warner. The entire 49er defense was out there. I thought he did a good job. I thought Carson Wentz did a nice job. Coaching, absolutely, Robert. Dude, he's got Sean McVay. You got Pinocchio. I actually had people on our network and other people around the Eagle Nation telling me that Sirianni 4 months ago, 3 months ago, is a better coach than Sean McVay. You might want that one back, too. I was like, you're not serious. You're not serious. Man, the troubling thing is they quit. You know, that is probably... Here, let's take a look at the numbers. By the numbers here. How do you get beat by 17 points by the Giants? Willie Beeman Hurts. They're turning him into that. It's coaching. They got shitty coaching around him. How do you get beat by 17 points by the Giants with Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor? You're beat by 17. And here's the troubling thing again. Okay? Here's the troubling thing. You've lost 5 of 6. This is now a trend. First down, the Giants had more first downs than you. The Giants had more plays than you, 66-65. How do we fix this? Mr. Pooh, there's only one way, man. The owner has to fix this. When he parachuted it, hey, you want to hear something? He wasn't wrong to hire Chip. Watch this. Watch how many people respond to this, and I can't wait to see your responses. Jeffrey Lurie wasn't wrong to hire a guy like Chip. Do you understand why he hired Chip? Why do you think he hired Chip? Why do you guys think the owner of the Eagles hired Chip Kelly? Because he wanted a course change. He wanted a course change. He wanted something different. That's why Chip was hired. Chip wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong to put him in the closet. He's just the wrong guy. Chip was the wrong guy. The owner of the Eagles was right. He hired the wrong guy. See, he was hoping he hired Pete Carroll or Jimmy Johnson. That's what he hoped he was hiring. He didn't get it. He got Steve Spurrier. And that's the problem when you hire those coaches. Like, you know who the perfect hire for the Eagles is? Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is the perfect hire. Jim, I'll make this right here. There's only one person that could turn this thing around, and Jalen Hurts. Excuse me, but didn't Jim Harbaugh coach Colin Kaepernick, an RPO guy, all the way to a Super Bowl? Did he not? And if the lights don't go out, the Niners may have won that. Can you imagine Jim Harbaugh with Jalen Hurts? That's a pipe dream. That guy would demand wholesale changes. He's not going to have a guy like Howie Roseman. He couldn't stand Trent Baalke. He couldn't handle Trent Baalke in San Francisco. Turned out he was right. Baalke destroyed that franchise for about 3 years after. Then they hired John Lynch. They went through their avalanche of coaches brought in, including Chip. Then they landed on Kyle. Chip Kelly was just the wrong dude. Right idea. Will he do that again? The Giants put up 400. I didn't remember. The Giants put up 415 yards on your defense. And you had 299. It's embarrassing. That's easily one of the most embarrassing football games for a great team I've seen in about 20 years. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. The Giants ran for 109 yards with the worst O-line in pro football. 4 turnovers. More possession. Jesus criminy. Jalen Hurts, 7 of 16, 55 yards, a pick, 26.8 rating. Tyrod Taylor, 23 of 32, 297, touchdown and a pick, 98 rating. The rest of these numbers are stupid. Most of the guys that are on the Giants won't be on the team next year. Again, this is not about the Giant game. This is more of an organizational thing here. It's embarrassing. You should be utterly embarrassed. And you know what? I'll tell you something else that goes with this. I blame the media for painting this Camelot that they had in this building. And they never had it. The players were it. I should have known that from the 4-11-1. There's no culture in that building when you have a general manager that will sabotage you at any time. He's a saboteur. Never trust that guy. Dude, stop, guys. Nick's not the dude. It's got nothing to do with him. Whether he's the coach or not, or you fire him, why are you looking at Nick? They're bringing another Nick in. You think bringing another Nick in fixes it? I hear people go like this. I heard Tony's going to join us at 3:30. Hey, this coach should be fired. So what? What's that mean? To go through it again? So that they can practice their same magic again? Dude, every time you change one of these guys out, get this. Andy Reid, Doug, Chip, Nick, all winning records. All winning records that were not allowed to do their job. Just think how good they could have been if you allowed them to do their gig. And I'll ask you one more time. How many Super Bowls do you think now that you've left on the table by firing Doug Peterson? For the ego of the building. Think about what you have your own version of Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson in Philadelphia and how you handled Doug. You should have 2 Super Bowls in 6 years with Peterson. Instead, you have 1 in 30. And for some of you, that's okay. But legendary is not winning every 50 years. That's not legendary. Legendary is winning 6 Super Bowls in 20. That's legendary. Or 4 and 6. That's legendary. Or 3 and 5. That's legendary. Or an undefeated team and 3 trips to the Super Bowl and 2 Super Bowl rings. That's legendary. You? I mean, you're just one better than the Lions. Well, wait a minute, Sills. We've won more than the Lions. Oh. When you celebrate bronze medals the way you do, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. Somebody goes, D-Jax and Macklin. What did they do for you? Nothing. They didn't get you 100-catch seasons. They were good players. D-Jax was a special player because he was a special teams guy too. So D-Jax is a different category. The rest of them guys, T. Higgins, Jeremy Macklin, he's T. Higgins. Deshaun Jackson, not quite Tyreek Hill. That's a pretty good class to be in the room with. Deshaun Jackson won't see the inside of a Hall of Fame except for the Eagle Hall of Fame. Pro football? Don't think so. Not happening. Fix this? The owner has to fix this. If you get blown out by the Buccaneers, you know what they're going to do? Well, this ain't us. It's the coaches. And then you'll have the media people, and they'll do all the propaganda that they need to do to start tar and feathering Doug Peterson. I mean, Nick Sirianni, and make him look like the bad guy. And that's how they work in your market. Because once again, they'll go to Jay Glazer, Adam Schefter. They'll go to Ian Rappaport. They'll go to all those guys to start setting a narrative. They'll go on the NFL Network. And then they'll start sprinkling their BS out to Reuben Frank and some of these other guys locally. And it'll start trickling down. Remember I said that That's how the off-Broadway play will start with the demise of Sirianni if they get blown out by the Bucs. What happens if the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year? How would you think this season would have been looked at? If the Eagles would have won that Super Bowl, Nick would have had 3 years of autonomy, and they would have given him the autonomy that Sean McVay gets. But the loss in the Super Bowl and the loss of what's going on now shows you why you lost the Super Bowl. Jonathan Gannon was not focused, and we now know that to be true, on winning and putting a defensive scheme up against Patrick Mahomes. Shane Steichen was getting the Colts job, and everyone knew it. And Nick was on an island by himself. They put a half-ass game plan together. There was a half-ass game plan put together. The team was 22 guys. That roster, and I'll continue to say this, that roster is one of the best Super Bowl rosters I have ever seen. Okay? When it comes to putting a Super Bowl roster together. Last year's Eagles, that was a spectacular football team. Talent everywhere. Okay? Spectacular. Yes, sir, baby. Oh, and folks, as you could see, some people get mad at me for your team quitting. Why would you get mad at me for pointing out quitters? Why are you mad at me for a team that quit? Cosmo goes, why do you think the team quit? Come on, Cosmo. Why don't you answer that question? Why do you think the team quit? Because they don't believe. When you keep telling someone to do the wrong thing day in and day and a 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 day, and you know it's not the right thing, and they get this. You know why the players quit? I'm going to take a time out here in a second. Do you know why the players quit? Here's why. Wouldn't you quit? Check it out. Last 6 weeks, they keep putting them position to lose, position to fail, 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 and you're failing. The players look at it like, what's the point? We could play our ass off, and it won't matter. Dude, if my head football coach put a game plan together and we lost because of my head football coach's game plan, that's one thing. But when I get a bookworm handing me a game plan, I got a problem with that. Good morning. Good news from yesterday's abomination was it on the plane, Gold Coast Ocean Holiday. Sydney, thank you for coming aboard. All right. My friend Tone's going to join us in a couple minutes. Don't forget our great friends at Hooters. Do me a favor with all their great specials they have. Military Mondays, 20% off all day for all of our military people. We got happy hours Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. 6 items, $6. Lunch specials Monday through Friday, 11:30 to 3. Boneless wings. Hey, listen, if you want to go into the place or you don't forget you can use the app at HootersToGo.com. Fantastic here. Look at this. Last week's winners. Washington, New Jersey. Ty Washington from New Jersey. And Pat from North Carolina are our winners. Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for participating. Your gift certificates will be in the mail. We'll pick it up tomorrow. We'll do it again with our great friends at Hooters, northeasthooters.com. Northeasthooters.com. Do me a favor. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Why in the world would you fire Mike Tomlin? Why would you fire Mike Tomlin? Good night. Is that guy a great coach? Shit. Man, is he good. You know, sometimes when you have something that's so good and you have him in the building, who would you replace Mike Tomlin with? George Halas? John Harbaugh? Who are you replacing him with? Bill Belichick? Mike Tomlin is such a great coach. You know, their problem is they held on to babyface Roethlisberger too long. They held on to that guy way too long, man. They needed to move off him. They needed to make the tough cut. You know, that's the one thing I give Belichick a lot of credit for. Hey, by the way, you didn't actually think that they were going to fire Bill Belichick today, did you? Make him into a common Black Monday coach. You didn't actually think that. Especially when he's got $20 million coming to him per year over the next 3 years. This guy's got $80 million coming to him. You think he's just going to go, hey, no problem. $80 million. 80. Okay? 80 million bucks. He ain't gonna go, well, did he? And for the record, why would Bill want to coach anymore? What's the point? I could see him doing something that Parcells did. Let him go in and run an organization. Get off the sidelines. You stayed too long. They made you into a villain because you stayed too long. They hate you because you coached in Boston. They think you're part of a racist community. All the scandals you had. You're a modern day Al Davis. So they're going to vilify you. What's the point? You're the greatest NFL coach that's ever lived. Nobody could take that away from you. No matter what idiotic people who never played the game say about you. Isn't it funny? The people with zero legacies say Belichick was about Brady. Well, you think Walsh was about Montana? Or Montana and Young, weren't those guys also part of it? Or do you think Bradshaw and Noel or Aikman and Jimmy? You don't think there's a coincidence that every one of those great coaches had a Hall of Fame quarterback? Shula, Greasy, and Marino. You don't think those guys weren't winning Super Bowls with Cleo Lemon? Okay? Every one of these legendary coaches, maybe except Joe Gibbs, you can make the comment there because he had 3 different dudes. Belichick, he can't hurt. The only people that rip him are people who never played the game or any sport in their life. And again, I think it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, but you know what? The Pro Football Hall of Fame voters will do it right because there's no arguing. That's like saying this about Lawrence Taylor. Well, he was a drug addict. Well, is there any kind of bylaws that say you can't put drug addicts in and people who've been arrested for drugs? No. Then what's the point? You don't put Lawrence Taylor in your Hall of Fame. You don't have a Hall of Fame. That's what makes the Baseball Hall of Fame so preposterous. I mean, seriously, you'll put Harold Baines in and keep Bonds out and Rose. It makes it so obnoxiously stupid. The Baseball Hall of Fame's a joke. I mean, Scott Rowland is a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. Scott Rowland. Now you're putting anybody in. It's obnoxious. Totally obnoxious. Again, I still can't get out of my mind. Okay? Why didn't they want to play? There was like no energy to want to play. I don't even know why the Eagles got off the bus. You made a trip up 95, got off on 16W, went over to MetLife, stood in the rain on the sidelines for 3.5 hours for nothing. And the Giants had nothing to play. Actually, you want to hear something crazy? The Giants winning that game hurt them when it came to the draft. It hurt them. It hurt them. Who caused? Hey, ask yourself this, and you guys are going to go to the easiest low-hanging fruit. Who caused this? Nick? Howie? The organization? How they do business? You don't really think this is one person here, do you? Why are you landing on Nick? I look at Nick Sirianni as a doorman. He's a doorman. You know who I kind of feel bad for? I feel bad for AJ. Okay. He's trying to do everything he can, then he fumbles. As soon as he fumbled, I was like this, God forbid. And I like Darius Slay on my Twitter. You know, we had a little more conversation. He liked the comment. And I'm saying at least AJ, and I was wrong about those two. I think they're trying to do everything they can to rally the troops. Can I tell you this? That locker room is as divided as it was under Foles and Wentz. It's just a different situation. And once again, you know what the problem is? The organization above causes a divide because you don't allow the coach to have autonomy and strength in his own locker room. Howie divides the locker room, not Nick. You get that, right? Why do you think Jerry Jones was not allowed in Jimmy Johnson locker rooms? Because he didn't want another voice in there for the players to think that they could go to. Nick Sirianni has half the locker room, and the other locker room that's inside the locker room goes to Howie. This is the same shit that you had with Foles and Wentz. You know, usually I write some cliff notes down here. See this right here? I got a bunch of guys here because Angelo Cataldi comes on. Look what I got on here. Nothing. Because I don't need any questions. Because you know why? To me, what question could I possibly ask Tone for quitting? Let's bring my friend in for the segment. Our friend Tone. Yeah, you know, breaking the Giant game down. This is more than just the. This is 5 or 6. This has gone on for 3 months now. It's like, I don't know. I mean, the Giant game was just the ending. I can't believe that they quit like that in the first 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it was pretty hard to watch.
It was hard to watch.
It was hard to watch because the moment the game started, I felt the quit. The moment the game started, it didn't seem like an Eagles. It didn't feel or look like a trademark Eagles effort. It looked off brand. It looked like they completely mailed it in, or didn't even. As a matter of fact, they didn't even lick the stamp. They
looked
just
like the 4-11-1 team.
They looked bad. They looked really bad, and you know, it's easy to get mad at the bricklayer. It's easy to get mad at the mason, or it's easy to get mad at the electrician or the plumbers. It's easy to do that. But when are we going to start pointing the finger at the contractor, the guy who laid out the blueprint? When are we going to start pointing the finger at that guy who gave us the faulty plans, who gave us something that's not sustainable, or who can't seem to sustain success in and of himself? So for me, there are so many issues with this team, but it always trickles from the top down. And if there's going to be any semblance of prosperity from this daunting moment that we're feeling with the Philadelphia Eagles, if there's going to be any sort of prosperity, and I spoke about this on Sports Take earlier with my guy Rob Ellis, the players and the coaches can't be the only ones looking in the mirror here. The owner has to look in the mirror and take ownership of the product he's put out there. The general manager / executive, whatever title he has, they keep creating new titles for this guy. He needs to take ownership of the product he's put out there, the personnel
You really
he's
think they
provided.
believe that this problem is them?
That's a hell of a question. And if you're asking me straight up, do I think they think this is their issue? No, I don't think they do. And that's the sad part about it.
They hired unqualified people at the beginning of the year. They brought in people like Shaq Leonard and Nicholas Morrow and all the rest of these guys, and they thought they were going to coach him into Ray Lewis with inferior coaches. The people that made those hires, like you say, it's one thing if you're the contractor, but if you own the business and you're putting faulty parts in this company and when you're building it and faulty outlets and doing all that, you know it's not going to work. They put faulty equipment on this Eagle team this year who was so close to you're closer this year to winning a Super Bowl than you were a year ago.
They spent more. They spent more money on the cosmetics rather than the foundation of the house. You follow me?
Yeah.
They spent more money on the tile and the backsplash and the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. This team was doomed from the start. It was doomed from the start, and it was because Howie Roseman didn't do a good enough job loading up on his defense. He didn't do a good enough job putting the right people in position to succeed. And again, it starts from the top. When you establish a philosophy or a culture of we're the ones who push the buttons, we're the ones who give you the target and you just shoot, it's kind of hard to really bring some high quality coaches in here when they already know what the dynamic is. So I firmly believe, and I said this earlier, and I said it within like the first 30 seconds of Sports Take, that football team quit on Nick Sirianni yesterday. They quit on Nick Sirianni yesterday, and they quit on him after that Niners game. And it's funny. You said something earlier, right?
They ever really played for him?
And that's $1 million. That's the $50 million question right there. Did they ever play for him? And here's what's fascinating about it all, right? They're playing like a team who doesn't respect their head coach. They're playing like a team who knows he's not the one who's really pulling the strings or pushing the buttons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but don't get mad at Nick.
No, and that's what I was about to get to, right? I'm going to always shit on Nick. That's not going to change. But the fact of the matter is Nick really the crux of the issue? No. Nick's, you know what it is? Nick is a symptom of a virus, of a sickness. That's what Nick is. Nick is a symptom. He's not the diagnosis. You follow me?
Yeah, you know what Nick is? He's the shit that people were throwing out there about the COVID shot, saying that it'll cure everything. And then guess what? You need 7 more COVID shots.
Hey, be careful, man. They flag us on YouTube for that.
I got you there, but that's kind of what this is. You think you're going to fix something when you know, quite frankly, I heard you too earlier when you went like this. Hey, man, that guy should be fired. Why?
And you know
what? They could bring another virus in?
That's the easy fix, right? That's the easy thing to do.
That's the cosmetic fix.
Yeah. And of course, I'm emotional, right? I love this team to death. And I still don't believe Nick Sirianni is the guy, though, still to this day. I mean, I don't believe it. So I do think they need to look in another direction eventually. But what's the point if the method is not going to change the madness? You dig me? So the
owner has in the past.
And that's the only silver lining. The owner.
And
here's the thing. I think the owner, if I had to give credit to Jeffrey Lurie, he strikes me as the kind of guy who just wants to do whatever it takes to win. Him alone. He strikes me as a guy who just wants to do whatever it takes. Howie, on the other hand, strikes me as a guy who's moving with ego and moving with a sense of control that needs some sort of checks and balances.
And deceptiveness.
I don't trust Howie Roseman right now. Is Howie Roseman a top 5, top 10 GM? Sure. But that's not what we're talking about here, right?
But wait, as a GM's role is to oversee personnel departments, pro and college, and construct deals and to scour rosters. Do I think he's good at some of that? I think he's great at the constructing of the contracts. I think he's great at getting ahead of contracts.
You know what his problem is? I'm
hometown
so glad.
discounts.
I love where you're going. You know what his problem is? His problem is, and this is what separates him
His
from
success has intoxicated him.
yes, but also this is what separates guys like what's the GM in San Francisco name? John Lynch. This is what separates guys like John Lynch, Brett Veach, the guy in Houston,
Nick Caserio.
Yeah, this is what separates guys like that from a guy like Howie Roseman. Those guys know what they're good at and what they're not, and they accept it. Howie Roseman, on the other hand, he believes that he has it all figured out. He believes that he is what he thinks he is.
Yeah, he thinks he's Jerry Jones.
And the fact of the matter is, you're astute at contracts. You do an amazing job at scouring the free agent and trade market. You craft deals that are team friendly, and the player doesn't even realize how team friendly it is. You do a good job at
he's great at that.
You do a good job at empowering your front office people. You know what I mean? You pump out front office talent often. You know what I mean? He has a skill set.
He does.
Don't get it twisted. He has a skill set. He knows how to accumulate resources. He knows how to balance the checkbook. He has a skill set, and those are all important aspects of the job. The money, it's such an important aspect, and he knows how to handle that.
But remember, he's a capologist.
Exactly.
He's not any more than that.
Exactly. And that's what he doesn't want to accept about himself. You can't evaluate talent. You've never been good at it. Never been good at it. Never been good at it. Let's stop pretending. Listen, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So if I take 10 shots, I'm bound to hit one. So
more with him, 30.
Right. Let's go back 2019 draft class on 2019 draft class on up. Who's making an impact on defense from 2019 on up?
Carter.
Who's making an impact? Jalen Carter. Jordan Davis when he doesn't have a cheeseburger in his hand. I mean, what are we doing?
We haven't had any impact from his drafts in the last 3 years.
No impact from the linebacker position. No impact from the DBs. None.
Tone, think of this. You brought a guy's name up. You don't think there's any coincidence that when Nick Caserio left New England, when Brady left, all of a sudden, the Houston Texans are now champions of the AFC South. And he's turned that entire thing around when you had quality front office people like Kim and Scott Pioli. Okay.
And a coach that was all in line. They were all in line with one single goal. And they knew
what Bill wanted. They all worked with the personnel.
And they knew their roles.
Front office.
They know their roles. Let's make sure we emphasize that. They know
right.
their roles. They know what they're good at and what they're not.
Too. That's ownership giving. See, when you sign that 3-year contract, Mass, thank you. That's really kind of you. When you gave him that contract extension, you gave a contract extension that was too vague. You didn't define, everyone's got a defined role in that building but Howie. You understand that, right? And look what they did. Dude, Baker Mayfield had a better passing season this year than Jalen Hurts.
How's that possible?
How's that possible? Seriously, how's that possible? I mean, you know what's crazy? People go like this to me. They go, you know what? The Bucs suck. I heard Rob saying this. The Bucs suck. They're no good. I'm like this. Well, Mayfield's got 4,000 passing yards, 28 touchdowns and 10 picks, 94-6. He's got a better passing season than Hurts. Rashid White, 990, 6 touchdowns, and 64 catches, 549 receiving.
I think what he
you
was.
got two receivers over $1,000. Dude, don't go if you go to sleep on the Bucs, you will get beat.
I think what he was trying to explain was like, although the Bucs, their record is what it is, and so on and so forth, the Eagles can lose to them.
You only got two more wins than them.
Right. And I think that's the point he was making. The fact that the Bucs are what they are. And the Eagles can get beat by them.
You look like the Bucs.
Right. The Eagles are so bad that they're only 1.5 point favorites. Think about that.
The Eagles have dropped so far on how people look at them. They think they're the Bucs.
You know what I said?
Look at the point spread.
You know what I said earlier? I said, typically in a game like this, the better team would have a certain mystique, a certain edge about them that the lesser team would have to come in and they kind of look at it as, look, man, we're just happy to be here, right? The Eagles have lost all their edge. They've lost all their mystique. They've lost all their equity in the NFL to the point where people are looking at them like they can get beat by anybody. Why would I ever bet on that team? Why would I ever give them a 3-point spread, whatever it may be? Like, people are looking, the Eagles have lost their edge. They've lost their swagger. They've lost their juice. They've lost their notoriety. They're no longer looked at as the team to beat anymore. They're looked at as a team that can be beat.
How about this one here, Tone? So in the game when it was 4th and 4, I went like this. Okay, don't go for it. You're on the road. It was still 7-7, Cowboys in Washington. And I said, make the shittier team go 90. They'll make a mistake. They were kind of waffling around the Giants at the beginning of the game. Then they realized they had wide open windows. As the game went on, more confidence happened for Tyrod, and you saw him pick it up. But at that time, they were still wobbling around a little bit. Yeah. And I said, make a 5-win Giant team have to go 90 yards. Instead, they don't get it. They give the ball half field. They go 50 yards.
Desperation.
I went like this. They're going to beat. That's shitty coaching.
Desperation. Not reading the moment. You know, desperation. It's sheer desperation. Panicking. All of it. All the above. Yeah. All of it.
You know, and again, it's not that you're like this. It's a division opponent. You're not playing well. Give yourself a chance and your defense a chance. If you know your defense can't stop anything,
give him at least a full field. Why in the world
would you give a team half a field? Inexperience.
And those are the moments I look at Nick Sirianni like, what are we doing here?
I was like this. I go, why would you? As soon as that happened, I went, the Giants are going to win this game.
I knew it early. I knew Giants.
You kind of knew it 2 minutes in when you saw the effort.
Listen, the moment the Giants went up 10-0, I said they're winning.
Oh, yeah.
The moment they kicked that field goal, no, I'm sorry, they kicked the field goal first, then they scored a touchdown. The moment they scored that touchdown, and also it wasn't even really the score. I just saw how they moved the ball in the first drive.
The body language.
The way the Giants moved the ball in the first drive and the way the Eagles were chasing, I'm like, oh, they're not winning this game. There's no way they're winning this game. They're not even playing with it's almost like they're playing on two different speeds right now.
How about this? Do you think that team, dude, I disagree with some people. They quit on Nick. I think they quit on everyone. Nick, Howie, and I say this.
I see you're just taking it a step further. You're saying it's just deeper than just Nick. I got you.
Here's what they did. And people keep going, Sills, how can they go from 10-1 to losing 5 or 6?
Easy.
Here's what happened again. They were winning with they were playing with all of their heart. Let me tell you something. If you played with the same passion against the Giants that you had in that game against the Bills, they win that game on Sunday. If you play with the passion that you had where you had to gut out like the Chiefs, you're going to win that game on Sunday.
Stay right there. Something happened. I'm glad you went there.
Yeah,
Something happened between Bills week and Niners week.
Here. They finally looked at it. When you have people making comments like this, Tone, hey, and I don't know who said this because I heard this on you guys' show. I don't know who said this, but hey, whatever is called, play to the best of your ability on what's called. When I heard you guys say that, I went like this. Fuck that. If I think I'm in a game and I think you keep putting me in a position to fail, this is not about that. So what's happened here is the players have played company policy, and the company has driven them into bankruptcy.
Do you think the players are tired of? Do you think at this point now, what we're seeing on the field is the players are somewhat silently rebelling?
Yes.
It feels that way. It feels that way. It looks like
all you needed to see was the effort.
Look, it's at a point now where they don't even care about winning. No. They look like they're so fed up with what's been going on internally. And look, again, this has been a buildup, right? That's why I feel like this isn't something that just happened. This has been a buildup.
The quitting on Sunday is so, for a professional football team, Tone, I have never in my life seen a team 2 minutes in, you still had a shot at the NFC East because it was 7-7. Then it went, actually, Washington got up on them.
They got up 10-7.
Okay. And they had to come. You had no idea how that thing was going to play out. What happened with like the second quarter? Nick waved the white flag. I'm like,
yep.
Why would he wave the white flag like that? If you were not going to, I told you this. Remember I said this on Friday? Listen, why don't you just concede the game?
In hindsight, you know what's I'm so glad you said that.
Just concede it, the NFC East. You could have got your mind right. You could have kept AJ healthy. Hurts would have been more healthier. If you were going to do that instead of being half-ass in, then why do that and put yourself in harm's way when you were half in? Listen, look at the two things, Tone, that give you the notion that that organization does things halfway. The way you hired Desai, the way you went about that game on Sunday, they do things halfway. They don't have conviction on anything they do.
They sat Fletcher Cox but played everybody else. It was weird.
I would have sat Jason Kelsey.
It made absolutely no sense. You asked me on Friday, which do I think is the better decision, to play the guys or sit the guys? At that time, and obviously hindsight is 2020, but at that time, my mindset was, well, you still have something to play for. You can win the division. That's one. For two, you guys need to go into. They need to go into the playoffs with even an inkling of some kind of confidence or flow, anything. So those were my two main things that I was latching on to and why they should play. And your mindset was what you just said. Well, look, at the end of the day, take a breather, get your mind right. Listen, 9 times out of 10, the Cowboys are going to beat the Commanders anyway. Just concede.
No, that was my concern.
And what we saw on Sunday was part of what I said and part of what you said. Half in, half out type of shit. You know what I mean? You sit Fletcher Cox and he's healthy, but you play Jason Kelsey, you play Lane Johnson, and you play all these other guys. For all that, and again, hindsight is 2020, you would have been better off sitting everybody.
Yep.
And at least we can say, well, you sat everybody.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mess with you mentally.
And you could have came out of that game more spiritually sound, and you could have came out of that game healthier. Instead, now you
more
have
spiritually
even
sound.
More questions, and you're more banged up going into the Buck game. By the way, you're not having AJ Brown in that game.
So the last thing I heard about him is after the game, no crutches, no brace, no limp. They likely was just trying to keep. Once they saw he went down, they probably felt like they dodged a bullet, and they probably thought to themselves that we're not putting him back out. I think he plays though. I think he plays. And now I will say this though: you lost Sidney Brown to a torn ACL. You lost Reed Blankenship to a groin injury. Now you're not going to have neither of those players on Sunday, in my opinion. The groin, you played the game. Tell me how unpredictable a groin
Never
is.
happened.
So therefore, you're going to be without 2 safeties.
And you're
Now-
already horrible back
and
there.
you're already horrible back there. So in hindsight, was it worth it?
No.
Obviously not. And it was easy for me to say that now when I already had my mind made up on Friday. But the result is the result, and I had to react to the result. So it was clearly a poor decision to start those guys.
Again, if you're on the sideline and you're the coach and you see the players don't want to play, he should have just pulled everyone. He should have just taken everyone off the field, got into the locker room. And you know what, Two-Tone? I'm sick and tired of people not reading the freaking riot act. You should have got on that thing on Monday or on Sunday and read them the riot act saying, well, I'll tell you what, that was without a doubt the worst effort I have seen since I've been the head coach of the Eagles. And for us to go into the playoffs with that mentality is absolutely, we need to have a come to Jesus conversation as coaches and as players, because an effort like that team didn't have anything to play for, and they kicked our ass.
Two weeks in a row, you came across 2 teams that had nothing to play for.
Why won't they have constructive criticism? Dude, they baby. You know what Jalen Hurts' problem is this year? They babied him and didn't coach him. I'm not saying you have to scream at Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I'm saying you have to coach him. Remember I told you, people were like, well, this guy knows this guy since he was 3. I'm like, what in the world does that have to do
Let me
with
ask you
anything?
a question. Let me ask you a question. You've covered this game for a long time. Let me ask you this, right? I'm trying to word this correctly so I can make sure I get the not the answer I'm looking for, but make sure you know what I'm trying to ask you. When you're coaching a $50 million, when you're coaching a franchise quarterback, right? And again, you've covered this game for a long time and you've seen it on every level. Does it take a certain type of coach to be able to have the confidence or the balls, to put it simply? Does it take a certain type of coach, a certain caliber of coach, to be able to openly coach the franchise quarterback without feeling like he's overstepping? Like, I guess what I'm saying is, do you believe? I guess what I'm saying is,
I'll tell you flat out right now. If Jalen Hurts had Mike Tomlin as his coach, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
Because I don't think
when he turns the ball over, you think Mike's going to pat him on the head and tell him it's okay? Or do you think Mike Tomlin's going to read him the riot act and hold his feet to the fire like he did Roethlisberger? Ben's going to the Hall of Fame too, dude.
And
okay.
And Ben hated him, but guess what? He loved winning more.
That's right. Hey, by the way, I don't want you to love me. I want you to respect me.
I want you to
play for me. I don't give a shit about that love stuff, dog. You got to do right by me. Yep. Okay? And Mike Tomlin. Can you imagine Mike Tomlin? Okay, how do you think Tomlin how do you think Tomlin would have came out of that game in a press conference on Sunday after his Steelers? By the way, they've just won 3 straight with some dude named Mason Rudolph. And they're
Christmas
in the
passed already.
With a shitty quarterback. I have no idea. And I look at that guy, and there were rumors a couple weeks ago about him potentially them moving on from him.
I wish they would.
Why in the world would you move on from that guy?
Listen. You said something earlier, right? You said something earlier when it came to Bill Belichick. You said the only people who don't like Bill Belichick or who thinks his job is in question are people who don't know football, or people who or
don't have legacies,
or people who don't have legacies, or just don't know what's going on. Right? Same thing goes for Mike Tomlin. You think the Roonies are looking at Mike Tomlin like he's a problem?
Absolutely not. They're looking at the quarterback position as a problem. And
exactly.
you know what the Steelers do? I'll tell you the difference between the Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you know what the difference is? The Steelers look at the issues with the Steelers as a quarterback issue. The Eagles look at the problem with the quarterback, a coaching issue now.
Listen to this.
they're not looking at it like you needed to develop the guy more. You stunted his growth this year. You know what you've done to him? You've turned him into Baker Mayfield.
Listen to this, man. When it comes to the Steelers, it's almost astounding. When you really look at it, right? This year, they made the they made the playoffs 10-7, right? Last year, 2022,
7
9-8. They just missed the playoffs. 2021, 9-7-1, made the playoffs.
And this
2020,
is without Ben. They're moving on from Ben.
exactly. 2020, 12-4, made the playoffs. 2019, 8-8. 2018, 9-6-1.
Let me stop you too, Tone. Remember this. This is in the era of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady.
2017, 13-3, made the playoffs. 2016, 11-5. 2015, 10-6. 2014, 11-5. Like, why would I ever fire a guy who keeps me in it like this? He is literally a quarterback away. He's a quarterback away
from winning a Super Bowl. Hey, let me ask you this. You think the Steelers are going to hire some nobody coach if they had Hurts in the building? Explain to me, Tone, once again. I heard you saying, hey, I think Sirianni's going to be fired. What? So what? Tone, so what?
Here's the thing, right? Jalen Hurts, whether people want to admit it or not, Jalen Hurts was a project.
Yes.
And
as was Lamar Jackson.
Right. And believe it or not, most quarterbacks are projects, believe it or not. But nonetheless, Jalen Hurts was a second round project that Shane Steichen coached up to the level that he did. Right. And to me, when you have a quarterback who's still developing and who's raw like Jalen Hurts was and still is to an extent, despite the numbers, despite the statistics, you still have to continue to nurture that talent. Progression and development is never a destination. It's a journey. And I feel like they did not do right by Jalen Hurts, this year with their hires. They needed to put people around him, experienced people that's seen things he hasn't seen. You know how many times these coordinators said in press conferences, "Oh yeah, they threw something at us that we didn't expect." They don't realize how much they're just vomiting, how much they're inexperienced. They don't realize it.
Hey,
Jalen Hurts
had a bad season this year.
Come on, man. Like
he had almost 20 turnovers.
Right. Those turnovers overshadow everything he's done.
Get this.
Just how if it was Josh Allen, if it was Dak Prescott, 20 turnovers, 19 turnovers overshadows whatever you've done. That's the reality. And I'm a Jalen Hurts guy. And I hate feeling like I have to qualify how I feel about Jalen Hurts as a player because people are emotional and they can't get their head out of their ass. The fact of the matter is Jalen Hurts had a down year. The fact of the matter is Jalen Hurts was a turnover machine this year. Do I think he's a turnover machine for his career? No. But this year he had a bad year and he has to wear it just like everybody else does.
Okay. Well, then let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Who is he? 2021?
That's a great question.
2022 or 2023?
I'm willing
because
to say
now get this. Every coordinator has a book on him, and every coordinator has a book on how the Eagles are developing him. Because get this, right now, he is not just a turnover machine. He's a predictability machine. And what he does on the field right now, because they have inexperienced coaches with him. And again, I pointed out to you, Tone, Ravens get Todd Monken. You bring his buddy in. I mean, and it results in an MVP for Lamar.
Right. So to answer your question, right? 2021 versus 2022 versus 23, right? So this is how I process it. So work with me on this. Jalen Hurts was drafted in 2020, right? He only started 4 games, I think, something like that.
I mean, they were mop-up games.
Right. So 2020, wash.
I watched him in New Orleans, Atlanta, or something like that. Maybe those kind of games.
Right. So 2021, he gets his first shot at being a starter. Starts off 2-5, Things are a little rocky. Shane Steichen takes over. They finish the season 9-8, make the playoffs. All things considered, all right, 9-8. You don't have a defense. You only got one receiver really, and you make the playoffs. Okay, so he showed strides as that season went. So that's then. 2022 comes. He elevates from 2021 to 2022. So for me, I look at 2021 and 22 as part of the same development arc. So when you ask me who is he from 21, 22 versus 23, I don't really say I more so look at it as who is he versus 22 versus 23 rather than all three of those years in comparison to each other. I look at 2021 and 2022 as this perpetual state of motion as far as development. I feel like the hiccup comes in 23, and that's where I'm questioning. Okay, who is Jalen Hurts? Who is Jalen Hurts? Is he the 2022 Jalen Hurts or the 2023 Jalen Hurts?
I think Jalen's the same guy.
That's how I'm looking at it.
I think Jalen's the same guy. I just think you got poor coaching around him.
No, agreed. And you can actually tell that based off of the way his stats are structured. He's thrown for more. He's technically thrown for a little bit more yards.
He's a 4,000-yard passer. If they would have kept him in, he'd have got it.
Yeah, he's thrown for more yards this year. He's thrown the ball. He's had more attempts, more completions. The completion percentage is the same, even with more attempts. So that tells me he's accurate, right? With more opportunities, he's accurate. Touchdowns went up, right? Rushing attempts did go down. Rushing yards did go down. But the anomaly really is the turnovers. That's the part of the game that is making it. That's the part of the game that we ask ourselves, who the hell is this guy?
I'm going to tell you, though, Tone.
Which, in my opinion, is a combination of poor decision-making and also what he's being coached to do and what not to do.
Okay, that's that last part there. The fact that they have limited him in rushing attempts has caused the turnovers to go up. Because when you take part of the weaponry away, that'd be like taking cannons off of a battleship and just going to battle with one cannon, right, and you're fighting another battleship with 10. Right. Why are you doing that? You're putting your guy at a disadvantage in every game. And I'm going to say this to you. There is one thing that definitely happened with the coordinators early in the season, because if you think about it and you look at the schedule, most of the time we played against guys who were head coaches or some really good coordinators, even Brian Flores with Minnesota. What they ended up doing and finding out with Jalen Hurts, his inability, or the Eagles' inability to have blocking backs. And this goes back to Howie. DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. And
Rashad Penny cannot block at all.
In pass protection.
Did you see him yesterday?
They were
Rashad
terrible.
Penny was Swift didn't play, but Rashad Penny was awful.
Terrible
in pass blocking.
I told everyone that's why he didn't play in Seattle. That kid Carson played because he was better in pass protection. That's why they drafted Walker. He could not play because he's a poor pass protecting guy. And then on top of that, because of Steichen in the RPO, remember something on the RPO again. When you're doing this, you're going to one target. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is a one-read guy, but I am saying the development that they did with the RPO made that one read open because the fear of him getting out in the perimeter created the space. Well, when you take the RPO away, Tone, you close that space.
Did you know this year, out of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, Jalen Hurts has completed has had to complete throws of the highest difficulty? He's had there's a stat for it, but Jalen Hurts is among quarterbacks who've had to complete passes under the most difficult circumstances.
Remember I told you in the Seattle game, and remember, dude, they're telling him where to throw the ball. And here, the double coverage of AJ versus Devontae being wide open. Why don't you throw to the easier, even if it falls under the sticks? Punt, play defense. Let's play some. Hey, special teams was good. There's 3 parts of football.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you putting that kid in a position? That's what I said all year. They're making that kid have to throw, and when you're not able to protect and your pass plays are not developing down the field because you're not running. Dude, Jalen Hurts is the most frightening weapon that's in that offensive huddle. Now he's not. He's not. You don't think he's as frightening as he was a year ago, do you?
No, they done him a disservice with changing his play style. He also doesn't have, let's call it what it is too. He didn't look as explosive this year either. He didn't look that explosive this year
because they told him not to be.
So I think
the money.
Even when he runs, he doesn't look like a guy who believes in what he's doing.
Yeah. And that's the inexperienced coaches that I said they hired for. Hey, you want to get on Sean Desai and Brian Johnson? They're checker pieces.
Mm-hmm.
They're like checker pieces on a checkerboard. Are you kidding? They don't really matter. Okay,
right.
This is not what your inability to put quality people in places of power comes back to the number one problem that you have in your organizational structure. That is that there are people in your building that believe that they have to have complete control over every facet of what you do on Sundays.
You said something interesting earlier, too.
It just doesn't. You can't. How about this, Tone? You can't win Super Bowls from the owner's box. You can't.
Agreed.
But get this. They're taking full credit. They're taking full credit for 17 when actually they just wrote checks.
You said something really interesting earlier, too. You said the fact that this coaching, you basically said, I think it was something along the lines of Howie and Jeffrey are quiet right now. And they're just sitting back. Excuse me. They're sitting back, right? Excuse me. I got this cough I can't get rid of. Anyway,
I hear
nonetheless,
I'm drinking water.
Right. They're plotting a strategy, right?
Yeah.
And me and Rob were talking about this. We think this is what they're going to do. They're going to try to approach it with the same gloves as they handled the Doug situation. Hear me out on this. Remember, before Doug got fired, they called him in and they said, "Hey, what's your vision? What's your plan?" And they heard him out and they said, "Look, that's cool, but this is what we want you to do." Doug didn't play ball. So therefore, Doug lost his job, right? I think they would feel better if Nick hung himself. That way, they don't have to bear the brunt of firing a guy because that will put the onus on them. I think what's going to happen is whenever the season ends, and it's going to end soon, they're going to have a meeting and they're going to ask him, "What's your plan? What do you think is the next move?" And if they don't like what they hear, they're going to say, "Well, this is what we want." And you know what he's going to do? "All right, okay, all right, sounds good. All right, let's do it. Let's do it."
Remember what I told you when he first got the job? He's not going to fall for that because Frank has prepped him how to get the job and how to keep the job. So he's not going to do that because he doesn't have the equity in the building.
Exactly. And that was the difference. And that's the key difference. So
now his best thing, in my opinion, if they start messing around too much with him, would be to resign. Because if they fire him, having made the playoffs 3 years in a row with a 680 win percentage, I mean, everyone that's going to potentially hire him down the road will ask the question, what happened?
What happened?
Yeah, don't put your fate in the hands of people who have handled your fate. You need to grab a little bit of it yourself. Now, do I think he'll do that? I don't.
Believe it or not, the best thing.
What?
No, I was saying, believe it or not, the best thing for both sides is if he resigns.
If he resigned.
Believe it or not, that's
so
that's
that
probably
he
the
can
best
get
situation.
another opportunity. Okay, would be something, because there's going to be let me say this to you. If Nick Sirianni resigned, with all the job openings that are there, I could see Josh Harris hiring him. I mean, when you have that kind of win percentage and you put Alec Halaby in the building, it'd be kind of the same thing. So, I mean, think about if I'm his agent, I would really go like this. Hey, if they start those Doug Peterson conversations with you, you've got to think about your long NFL coaching career here. Do you want to go back to being an assistant coach, or do you want opportunities to be a head coach? How about like out in and by the way, he's got a history with the Spanos family. So, I mean, but if he gets canned, losing 6 to 7, and he makes the playoffs 3 years in a row, that's going to be tar on his coaching resume that I don't know he can get off of.
Also, let me ask you this. Let's take it a step further, right? This is a very interesting case study. When it comes to Nick Sirianni, right? Let's say he did end up on the open market. People saw the difference in 21, 22 versus 23. People see, oh, Shane's not there. You don't seem the same. How much does that go against him if he ever was to hit the open market?
It doesn't, because coaches leave all the time, and we see quarterbacks like Josh Allen have fallback when Brian Dable left Buffalo.
Okay.
I mean, it happens all the time when you lose quality people. Hey, don't you think Mahomes took a step back without Bieniemy in Kansas City?
Right.
Okay, so now here's something to think about too. Hey, you're asking me to do something. You know how many coaches have done? Get back to a Super Bowl after losing one, and we were still 11-6. I mean, hey, last year we were 14-3.
That's big picture talk, though.
In a row,
right?
New coordinators. They put all these guys in the building. Quite frankly, get this: I'm 25-9. Really?
That's big picture talk.
You got to look at the people on the outside, how they see it, looking in, because we're close to it.
Right.
Living in Chicago right now.
And also, as an agent, and as they get paid to do, they can spin it however they choose.
They're gonna spin it that
way. They're going to spin it. This is really interesting because you're paying. We've been paying attention to this team all season, and a lot of the issues have been written on the wall. We've just been trying to paint over it. And Nick Sirianni, he's a guy that at one point I gave a lot more credit to than he deserved. And now he looks like a guy that's losing his locker room, or that's lost it, or even if he had it in the first place, he looks like a guy who's just hanging on for dear life. And because he's so willing to go along with Howie and his antics, I really don't know how this thing ends.
Tone, you know why I've never had respect for him?
Howie
he never
or
had
Nick?
a defining role.
How you talking about Nick?
Yeah.
Okay.
He never had a defining role. And being a cheerleader is not a role.
Also, here's another thing too, right?
When they took the play calling away from him, what was his role? Locker room cheerleader? That's not a coach.
I'm glad you said that, right? Because here's the thing. The one thing that Philly and a lot of people prided Nick Sirianni on was his ability to connect and motivate, things like that, right? That's what that's the credit we gave him. But
that's the narrative they put out.
Right. That's the narrative that we ran with, right? Let's say that. That's the narrative that we all ran with, that he was a motivator.
Well,
the
organization put that out too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We ran with it. So we followed suit.
Not a problem.
So my main point is in saying that, who are you when that's no longer working? Who are you when your biggest asset, who are you when your biggest gun is no longer working? Who are you when your best tool is no longer working? Who are you?
Kelly.
How effective are you when your best skill is no longer useful? And that's where he is right now. I don't think they can afford to bring him back knowing that knowing that these players are not responding to him anymore. I understand what you're saying, though, that this is a top-down thing. I'm with you 150%. But as of right now, they're not responding to that man.
That's why they're going to win 5 games in 2 years.
And that's
because they're going to bring the same
part.
guy in.
Man,
you're talking about repeating the same behavior, just with a different dude. It's the same waiter giving you the same shitty food, dude.
And then this goes back to what you said earlier. How much faith do we have? You asked me this early on. How much faith do we have in Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman looking in the mirror and taking accountability? Jeffrey, I have a smidge of faith. Howie, I have none. That's why it has to start with Jeffrey.
He's done it.
And he's shown a propensity to do it before. He wasn't afraid to move off of Andy. He wasn't afraid to cut ties with Chip. And he damn sure wasn't afraid to fire a Super Bowl head coach.
He also had the nuggets to hire Chip.
That part too. So
that's big.
It is.
Because that resulted in Roseman, Chip going upstairs going, get this guy out of here. And he did it.
I'm glad you said that. And he did it. So that tells me, yeah, Jeffrey got love
to it.
Jeffrey has love for Howie, but to what extent? Clearly, he doesn't have. He loves the guy, but he's not going to go to the extent of like 4-11-1 kind of teams. And again, that begs the question: what are the odds Jeffrey Lurie takes a long look in the mirror this offseason?
Not good. Because they were just in a Super Bowl 11 months ago. They've been to the playoffs 3 years in a row. And he's 25-9 in 2 years.
And guess what? I mean, and it's the same thing that can make you laugh, can make you cry. The same thing that you pride yourself on can also be the same thing that leads to your demise.
He'll be fired by week 8 next year.
Here's the sad part about it. With all that success that we're talking about, that can be the same reason why that same success can hold you back. You want to know why? Because you're not being honest with yourself, with who you are and where you actually are. I ask the same question whenever we talk about the Flyers and Keith Jones and those boys and Daniel Briere, all those guys over there. Whenever we talk about the Flyers, and every time we talk to a Flyers guy, I ask them the same question because I think it's important. How difficult is it for organizations to be honest with themselves based off of where they are?
You know who your best GM is in Philly? Do you know who your best GM is?
Who?
It's Dave Dombrowski. I worked with Dave in Miami.
That's the Phillies guy, right?
What?
For the Phillies.
He's the Phillies guy. I worked with him when he was with the Marlins. And he worked with a guy by the name of Larry Beinfest. And Larry Beinfest worked under, Dombrowski was the guy that was responsible for do you know that the Marlins have never won a National League East crown, and they've won 2 World Series? And you know why he did? He was able to put deals together. He was able to do free agent signings. He was able to have a great farm system. Because you know why? He doesn't put up with anybody's bullshit, and it stops on his desk. However, he empowers his managers to be managers, to go out and win. Mm-hmm. And that's why he is a sensational GM. By the way, he won in Detroit. Mm-hmm. He won in Miami. This guy, he's the guy that found Miguel Cabrera. And so I'm sitting there. Miguel Cabrera is one of the greatest right-hand hitters in our generation. 500 home runs, Triple Crown winner, 3,000 hits. And you know what they said in Miami about him because they tried tar and feathering his reputation? They called him a fat drunk. You know what Dombrowski said? Well, if that's a fat drunk, I'll take him in Detroit. And but he empowers people. Howie empowers himself. And just doesn't trust. That's right. He wanted Boston too. Dude, that guy, Howie is not a GM. It's funny. I saw somebody bring something up in here and they go, well, Doug Peterson and those guys parted with mutual understanding. Yeah, you know why they parted with mutual understanding? I'll tell you why they did, Tone. because they didn't want shade being thrown on the way out the door.
Of course. So look, my final take is this, and then we'll get our guy JAKIB on. I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. But my final take is this: the Philadelphia Eagles season will end next week, and I have a hard time believing that there is light at the end of this tunnel because of the ego of some of the people up top.
This is not a Nick Sirianni thing, or like I said, and I think you understand it. It's not a Nick, it's not a Desai, it's not a Brian Johnson. This is how the organization operates.
Exactly.
And whether you fire Nick or not, they're gonna hire Nick Sirianni 2.0.
And guess what? As Eagles fans,
philosophical mentality.
And as Eagles fans, we have to sit here and bank on Jeffrey Lurie putting his foot down in this organization. And I don't know how much I'm willing to bet on that this offseason because of the prior success. And you can get punch love drunk on it.
Before I get to JAKIB, I'll ask you one last time this question. I've asked you twice, and I'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
How many Super Bowls do you think that Jeffrey Lurie has left on the table now, moving away from Doug Peterson?
Oh, since Doug Peterson or since he's on the team? Which one? Since
he was in Philly.
I'll say this. I think Jeffrey Lurie.
If he's there 11 months ago, he wins.
Okay. So since Doug left.
6 years.
So since Doug left, got you. So it's been 6 years. Maybe two. Maybe two.
And how about this? Would you feel better about the progression of Jalen Hurts in a couple of years?
Of course I would.
The way he runs it?
Of course I would. I don't trust Nick Sirianni right now. I don't trust anybody right now. I don't trust nobody. Big Sills, come on, man.
Hey, Tone, I appreciate it. I want to get to JAKIB. I can't wait to hear this.
Yes, sir. Great talk as always.
You bet, my friend. I appreciate it. You know, I told you this. Now, let's get to JAKIB. Let me say this to you. I told you that I usually write down questions. See this right here? There's no questions. Because, hey, last week, Gary Cobb said this on Monday. You know what he said? How about somebody fight somebody? How about somebody kick somebody in the nuts? How about somebody grab somebody, start a fight in the locker room? And then I'm sitting there, I get my popcorn, and I'm ready to watch the game. 1 minute into the game, I went, oh, my God, they quit. Gary, I've never seen an NFL team that had so much. And at the time, remember, Gary, the Washington had gone up 10-0. Then it was 10-7 into the second quarter, and they waved a white flag, and I'm going, so were you half in on resting players? And you know what? I don't want to pollute your takeaway, man, from yesterday.
Well, I think that, they definitely got a problem. I mean, they got a major problem on the whole organization. I mean, to come out there and play with no fire, I could see, I don't think it's everybody on the team, but it's enough guys to where they got guys that are not really speaking up and really being the bad guy. Sometimes somebody got to be the bad guy. And somebody's got to be the adult in the room. And I just been very disappointed. I mean, you put that on your resume. That's, you never can go and erase those tapes. So you come out and you don't even fight, man. And the coaches too. I don't like some of the things they're doing. And I've talked to a few people, the problems they got on the defensive side of the ball where they got guys, two-gapping. Come on. They haven't been two-gapping all year. You got young kids and you start playing two-gapping and you wonder why. The thing is it's just
two-gapping. We haven't two-gapped since 1989 in this league.
Hey, well, they did some up in New England. They did some up there. And, and you can see that Matt Patricia, that move in the middle of a season, come on. It's it's just it looks really bad. And,
Gary, are you kidding me? Those two guys, Carter and Davis, are 3s and 1s.
Yeah,
they're
I know.
not two. They're not two gappers.
And and the kid,
you put him on the edge.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you can see you got a group of people that are not playing aggressive. I mean, they were bad early in the year, but they're getting worse. So why would you say they're getting worse? You obviously got people doing things they don't understand. Now you can see that Hassan Reddick dropping into the flat. What are you doing? You got him dropping out there on pass coverage, and if he were to make a mistake or a couple of mistakes, is that a surprise? The kid is, what are you doing? So I see all the things, and then you're surprised that that the Giants are blitzing. What? You have no adjustments for blitz?
Martindale does that.
His little buddy Ryan, come on, he learned it from Ryan's kids. Come on, he's gonna blitz, and he knows how to blitz. So there's gonna be somebody coming free. You got to have some side adjustments. But when people blitz, you can burn them. You got to burn them. You got to burn them sometime. You can't not wait. And I'll tell you, I think Jalen, he's the only one with the power that can say, hey, look, we got to be making some side adjustments or something on blitz.
You think he's too much of a company man?
What's that?
You think he's too much of a company man?
No, I think what has happened is, see, there's a lot of things going on in his life, and it's happening fast. In 1 year, he was just a quarterback.
Huh.
Then he became the franchise quarterback. Yeah. In 1 year.
Yeah.
So he doesn't realize how much power he has.
Yeah.
Where he can go, hey, coach, look, we got to do some side adjustments on these blitzes, coach. Yeah. I'm tired of just running away. Come on, what are we doing? You can't go into that game and you don't have anything for blitz? Are you kidding me? What? How can you go up against him knowing the guy's going to blitz? You're going, oh, I can't believe they're blitzing. What are you, an idiot? I mean, I'm sorry.
But doesn't that show his inexperience still?
Well, what it shows is it's not just him. It's the offense. They don't adjust to blitz. And you can't run an offense like that. Not in the pro. You got to have a side adjustment. If he dumps the ball off, because when you are blitzing, you could have that back where he fakes like he's going to blitz, and then you dump it to him. He's out there in open space. A couple of those, and people cut down all the blitzing. But you got to do something to hurt them. You can't just, where every time they blitz, Jalen runs out and throws the ball away. What is that? They've been doing that for 2 years. No adjustment. That's Nick. Really, the offense is Nick. The offense is not whatever the kid's name.
Matt Patricia or Desai.
Well, it's none of them. I'm talking about the offense. The offense is Nick.
Brian Johnson.
That's Johnson. And Nick, this is Nick's offense. They don't do any side adjustment or anything on blitz. What are you doing? You got to do something. So every time they blitz, they're blitzing. Well, then what are we going to do? And see, the only person that could change that, who can change that, is Jalen. He goes in there and says, okay, coach, we got to do something with this. And you can see, he sees the blitz is coming, but they got nothing they can do. He doesn't have time to sit in there to get rid of the ball. But anyway.
I think you brought something up, Gary, that I hadn't thought about, that we all took for granted, that as well as I do, something that even hurt me, and I never thought it, but guys like you were able to become professionals early and knew how to play the room. When you give a guy, after 1 year, $250 million, you name him the face of the franchise. Shit, he just got named starter.
That's right.
Then you push all this on him. Boy, that mentally,
it's a lot.
I don't think people understand how much that, because it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah. And understand, you're here in Philly. You know how important football
You're right.
is. The Eagles are important to the city of Philadelphia. It's past just football. It's past just football.
You're
This
right.
is a personal thing. When you talk about the Eagles, I mean, I've had people, hey, they get up and it gets personal. They want to tell me what they think. And people will come up to me, I'm trying to get something to eat. Sit down. I didn't invite them. Sitting at my table, telling me what they think about the Eagles. And they took some of this stuff personal, where you got a team, don't come out and don't fight. Come on.
This is the stuff that buried Wentz, wasn't it?
That's right.
Gary, I've never heard anyone bring this up. This is a brilliant point. This is the stuff that ended Wentz because he couldn't handle it.
That's right.
And now you're pushing all this in. Then you add the inexperienced coaching.
Yep.
Then you add the people that are not qualified to be around them.
Yep.
And the organization is doing different things. I think it's an overwhelming thing. I really do, because hey, when I got a $400,000 signing bonus,
mm-hmm.
and all of that, and I was a high draft choice with the Bucs, all of a sudden you're like, man, I showed up in a guinea tee and shorts, and I got a $400,000 check. And I went to the CBA or whatever that old bank was back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, and they go, Mr. Sileo, we've been waiting. And I'm like, okay. It's overwhelming.
Yep.
It's because they've rushed his development, not only on the field, but off the field.
That's correct. You know what I think would be a good thing is, if I were coaching or running a team, I'm going to get me a veteran quarterback that's been to the heights. That means he's been, let's say, NFL MVP. He's gotten down where he's making as much as anybody in the league and everything. And have him there as somebody that Jalen can call and talk to about these things, because his life just changed. And he's got, financial people calling him. Because times I see him sitting over there at the locker, and I'm just seeing he's just sitting there. Because he's got all this stuff going on. And, and I don't want to get all into his personal life, but there could be something going in there. I know he might be getting pretty serious with a little lady.
Or family members trying to, like, you. How about this one? Family members you've never heard of. They're calling you up, asking you for, a couple of,
that's right,
monopoly money, and wanting for you to do this and that. And you're like, holy cow. You got a lot of people with their hands out when you got that kind of dough.
That's right. So he's got all that going on. That's off the field. And then I think that he's one that they need to talk about this, because they got to take this offense to another level. You got to have something for blitz. You can't have where somebody just blitzes you and
How
you
about
don't make
better
any
blocking
adjustment.
Backs?
What'd you say?
How about better blocking backs?
Yeah, better blocking backs. That's right. Better blocking backs. That's right. They could use that. But they had what's his name? The big back, Penny in there. And that's why Penny hasn't been playing, because he can't block.
He's terrible. He's
You
terrible.
know what? He might as well turn and say, look out. Hey, look out.
Hey, he's the lookout running back. Let me ask you this about Sirianni. Do you think he's coaching for his job on Monday night?
No, I don't think they're going to get rid of him right away, but I think he's headed there. I think he's going to have to make some changes during the offseason, the way things are going. Like if they get blown out, if they get beat, if they lose, then he's going to get pressure to change some coaches, and they're going to have to change some things about their system. I think they're going to take a serious look at their offense, because teams have adjusted to what they were doing last year, and they have not made a counter adjustment. They just haven't done it. The RPOs, they haven't put together a running system on the level of what they were doing with the RPOs. They haven't been able to make an adjustment. And also, you can see, like I said, with the blitzing, you got to do something there. Defensively, of course, they got to decide what they're going to do, because what they did is they merged some of the things that Matt Patricia had been doing. Now he's brought them in. You got Hassan Reddick dropping. What if I was him? Now he said, I'm just doing what they tell me to do. I'm just doing what they tell me to do. Come on. He hasn't been dropping, and all of a sudden, and then you got Josh Sweat dropping too. Come on, man.
You
What do
might
you
as well
do?
just have Hassan Reddick run to the sidelines. I mean, he can't cover.
Nah, he hasn't been doing this. He
Dude,
hasn't been
that
doing
guy,
this
to me, wind
years.
him up and let him hit quarterbacks.
That's right. That's what you want to do. And what they have done is they've got these guys playing so passively because they're thinking. See? And I know Matt Patricia, he didn't mean any harm, but he's coming in, he's put his hands on what they're doing, and you can't be changing this late in the season. I'm sorry.
Worse.
Can't do that.
It's worse.
It's worse. It's worse. And so that's why, I would hope they would win a game. But do I think they're going to win a game? It doesn't look good.
I'm going to show you something here. It's crazy, Gary. Everyone's like, well, the Bucs only won that game like 9-0. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just put this out there. Before you guys start, you just lost to 2 teams in 2 weeks with a combined record of 8 wins. So before you start talking about you guys being these world beaters, just take a look at this. Baker Mayfield had a better passing season than Jalen Hurts. He threw for 4,044 and 28 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
They got this kid, Rashid White, 990. Yeah. He also has 64 catches for 550 yards. They got 2 receivers over $1,000, just like the Eagles do.
Yep.
Evans with 1,255, Godwin with almost 1,100 yards.
Yep.
So before you start saying that you're going to cover, you couldn't cover the shitty Giants.
That's right.
And these guys here, you've got 1,000-yard receivers at every position in a fourth. Yeah. And look, they turned Jalen Hurts into Baker Mayfield this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's been frustrating. You look at both sides of the ball, and you can see that they're really not sure of themselves, And, I don't like to see people talk about people losing their jobs and things, but and I don't think they're going to get him right away. No, I don't think that. I think they're going to.
How much heat is Howie under?
What, beg your pardon?
How much heat is Howie under?
I think Howie's under a lot of heat. Even though I don't think, I think he's secure too. But
no. I'm not saying that they'll get rid of him. But do you think he faces heat from him?
I think he's definitely feeling the heat because he made all the decisions. I don't think any of the decisions that changed with the defensive coordinator. Come on, Howie had his hand in that. Who are you kidding?
Of course.
Nick is not just running out doing whatever he wants to do. He is doing what they want him to do. I think this is, his offense and the defense is his and what they want him to do upstairs. So I definitely think that they've got their hands on everything that's happening, and it's not working. It's not working. I mean, you got to at least have your defense where the guys are playing aggressively.
Gary, I'll tell you what I would think that would be the perfect fix for this, but this is so unrealistic. I can't believe I'm even going to tell you. Mm-hmm. If you really want to have Jalen Hurts go to the Hall of Fame, you hire a guy like Jim Harbaugh, who took a guy like Colin Kaepernick to a Super Bowl, who was an RPO guy and was 41-19-1 and won an NFC championship. But the problem with him is that he's a fist with a mouth, and he demands power. And it would be a Chip Kelly. But here's the difference between Chip Kelly and Jim Harbaugh. He's won in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a former NFL player.
Yeah.
So he played 17 years in the league. There's a different dynamic there. But again, I
don't think they
love power in that building.
That's right. I don't think they would do that. I think they want somebody because they want to have a hand in it. And They got a ring. I mean, they won a championship, so that's and they believe in what they're doing. They went back there last year. The thing is they got to make some adjustments, and I think they realize they've got to make some adjustments. That they made some bad decisions, and the train right now is off the tracks right now.
Gary, do they win Monday night?
I'd have to say no. I mean, with what I have seen, of course, I'll be rooting for them and everything, but I can't. No, I mean, look how bad they've been. You got they made the Giants look like they were a playoff team. Come on, they're down 24-0. Come on.
Do you know they're only a 1.5 favorite over the Bucks?
Yeah, I could definitely believe it.
A point and a half.
And I'll tell you, the Bucks are going to play hard now. That's the one thing, But why don't you have this team? I mean, defensively, the Bucks are going to be playing hard. Everybody's hustling to the ball. Guys are playing like this means something. How could you have guys out there playing like they play a softball game,
2 minutes in the game, I went like, here, I want to give you another scenario too. A couple last things here, but I was like 2 minutes into the game, just the body language. And I want to show you something else in the game. So I'm watching the Giant game and I go, so it's 4th and 4. And I go, dude, punt it. Make that shitty Giant team go 90 yards. Don't give them half a field and help them. Sure enough, they don't get it. Turns into 7. I went like this. They're going to lose to the Giants. I could not believe it.
Yeah.
They're going to lose to the Giants. That was a panic coach. Kick the ball. The Giants are shitty.
Yeah.
Make them have to go 90 yards. You're the better team. I could not believe even the ink. And then 2 series later, they waved the white flag.
I don't know. I can't say I know these guys well enough where they're going to tell me, but what is it that's just been sapped out of this team to where, I mean, at least I thought you had fighters on the team, and I still think you got guys, you can see that offensive line with Jason Kelsey and those guys. I could see him after the game, the way you're supposed to look when you get embarrassed like that. But I don't know why defensively, and I guess some of it is they don't have a leader on defense where the guy that's calling the signals, everybody respects. And if he got to cuss somebody out, he cussed them out right out there. Whatever he got to tell them, he's getting in people's face and getting them going. And I don't see that. I mean, at least you're going to go out and you're going to fight. And if stuff is getting this bad, like I said, I'm waiting to see some anger or something.
How about a fight?
How about a fight? Something. But I'm just shocked that it would get to this point. But I can't pick them to win. I mean, I don't think they're going to win.
How about this? Last question. Do you think they change all the coordinators and all the coaches out on defense? And except for Stoutland on offense and maybe the wide receiver coach, do you think that there's going to be a lot of wholesale changes when it comes to the coaching staff?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think that you can't help but admit that the decisions that were made, were obviously mistakes. That they didn't have these guys going, and I don't see the coaches getting these guys play hard. I mean, they were just kind of sleepwalking through that game, and I think Sirianni will get at least another year, but they're going to make quite a few changes in that coaching staff.
I'll tell you this. Can you imagine Mike Tomlin standing at the podium after a game like that his team played and sitting there going, hey, we got to pick ourselves effing up. Hey, we got to do – Mike Tomlin would be going like this. Those guys laid down. Those guys quit. We have to have a come-to-Jesus conversation with ourselves. We got to figure out who we are. He wouldn't be talking about motivational Newt Rockney things. He'd be talking about things that are reality. See, they talk with those shit on those things that you put back when you and me were in high school. You know, those coaches meetings, and they had all the messages on the boards, and you were like, God, who wrote that? That was 1901? Oh, okay. Okay. Mike Tomlin looks at you in the face and goes, we got to take care of us.
I had guys, and thankfully, when I was in high school, we had some coaches that would get serious. Talk to you about your manhood and everything. We were high school. Don't even mention when I was in college, they'd be spitting in your helmet and everything. They just spitting in it. Come on.
Hey, Gary went to SC, but he also played for John Robinson. And John Robinson's not the easiest guy on the planet. Neither was Coach McKay.
That's right. And we had some the assistants, all those guys, a lot of them were pro coaches. Man, if you don't think they would let us know, if you're out there and you're not hustling, first of all, you're not going to be playing because they got a list of guys out there that can play that ain't even got a chance to play. So if you get out there, you're going to play hard. And I think, you know, the guys got to demand that. And some of the older guys on that team, they got to have, they got to get in some guys' face. If you got a young guy, look, you can't make it too complicated where a kid doesn't know what he's doing. But other than that, if I see you loafing, me and you are going to fight. We're going to fight right in here.
I have to ask you.
That's what
I
it's
have
got
to
to
ask
be.
you on the way out. How many games did you lose at SC?
We must have lost about what? I guess about 8, something like that.
That shot, really?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Surely you had an undefeated in there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, we really should have won 2 national championships, but we won 1. But you know, we had some good teams.
Hey, I was 33-1 regular season at Miami.
That's pretty good.
Hey,
that's
but
pretty
we're
good.
from the same. We're from the same bloodlines, man. In Stanford, I love you, man. Thank you so much, Gary, for doing this.
No problem. And I tell you what, boy, I hope these guys wake up, man. I hope they wake up.
They sure do.
You know,
man.
their career can go by fast.
Absolutely, Gary. I appreciate it. Thank you, Gary.
All right, have a good one.
You got it, Gary Cobb. Please hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Angelo Cataldi will join us at 5:30 Eastern. Can I tell you who I'd like to have on the Eagles next year? I'd love to have Derrick Henry. You know what it'll remind me of? You guys remember when Jerome Bettis left the Rams and went to the Steelers? Remember when he left the Rams and he brought a world championship to Pittsburgh and they said he was finished? How many yards did he have this year? He had to have gone over 1,000 yards because that's just who he is. By the way, I just want to put this out there in the greatness of Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is one of only 4 people in pro football history to have 1,000 yards in 10 or fewer games. That guy had 1,000 yards in 10 ball games this year. Holy cow. What a great football player. I mean, Detroit had no answers for him. He is some ball player. I mean, that guy has 1,000 yards in 10 games. Do you understand that guy would have probably had $2,000? $2,000. I don't think you understand the catastrophic failure that is to your organization when you miss on a guy like that. Financially, building your roster, stability, cap management. When you hit, look at Detroit. Do me a favor. Take a look at the Detroit Lions' last 3 drafts and look at all the players that they got from their drafts that are starters on that NFC North championship football team. That's the 3 seed. Take a look at all of that. By the way, a lot of it is a result of the Stafford deal. Think Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson. Go down the list of the guys that they have brought in and how they have drafted and how they are putting a stable organization together by not being free agent whores, but being solid and great in drafting. And you know what you don't do in Philly? You can't sustain success. Detroit's building a foundation. I'm telling you, you're a 5-win team in 2 years. You're a 5-win team. Bob goes, Sills, do you honestly believe that fans in Philly are not aware how bad a miss it was on Jefferson? I'm not questioning you whether or not you knew it was bad. I'm talking about that might be the dumbest comment you've made today. Yeah, but that's not what I was talking about, asspag. I was talking about the financial ramifications of it, not just the fact you missed on him. No shit, dummy. I'm talking about more the $40 million that you could have invested in the roster. That's what I'm talking about, ignoramus. Hey, Sills, you missed on Jefferson. No shit. Thank you, Mr. Obvious. But the collateral damage in the salary cap is the problem. And the reason your guy can't sustain success is exactly because of A.J. Brown is a great trade. Unfortunately, it affects your cap. If you get things right in the draft, it doesn't affect your cap, correct? Do you know Justin Jefferson is still on a rookie deal? I think they gave him an extension. He's at 19. Coming year, he's going to make 19.3 or something. Eagle fans act like they made the decision. How we missed. The fans didn't miss. This just proves how much people wrap their identities into their team. Anytime you criticize, they take it as you're shitting on them personally. That's what most people do because they assume that I'm insulting them. Guy, you didn't miss on Jefferson. The miss on Jefferson, you got to remember, when you miss in the NFL on a draft pick, it affects you in your cap, your longevity, and it affects you over 3 years. That's why I say Brock Purdy is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Do you know that? Watch this one, Tone. Brock Purdy's the best quarterback in the NFL. Why? Why is Brock Purdy the best quarterback in the NFL right now? Thank you, Tone. Thank you, Yale. Value. Hey, value and results. He's cheap. Very good. He makes $870,000 a year. 20 quarterbacks in the NFL make $870,000 a game. And you have that for 2 years. And he's third in passing yards with the least attempts. And he's an MVP candidate. And he's got the number 1 seed. And he makes $870,000 a year. Think of that. They can build their team and build the infrastructure of their team at numerous positions. That's why they're so deep. That was the value. Hey, Tone, that was the value of the Eagles last year. The miss is emphasized even more when you draft a worse guy at the same position. Correct. If the Eagles drafted a lineman or DB, no one would care. Hence, why Rager pick is so damn bad. When you skip over Jefferson, I couldn't have screamed any louder. Yeah, a guy who was playing with Burrow. Am I right? Jamar Chase was on the other side. How about Jordan Love for 41-59, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks? Fantastic year. Had a better year than Hurts. Good job, Matt LaFleur. I thought he wobbled early. Guy turned around. Brock Purdy's the best quarterback right now in the league because he gives his organization latitude, and you have that latitude for 2 years. It's how the Patriots were built. Brady was a 6th-round pick. Do you understand Tom Brady was never the highest paid player in the history of his career in New England? He didn't start making big money until he got to Tampa. He didn't make that money. That's how they built the New England dynasty. They were able to spend money in the O-line, in D-line, linebackers, all the key positions that built the organization. Basically, San Francisco's doing the same thing on the West Coast that Belichick did years ago. Brock Purdy is their Tom Brady. But some will go, oh, now he's comparing Purdy to Brady. Once again, you missed the point. That's like when I tell you that TJ Edwards has the same impact on the Eagle defense a year ago as Roquan Smith does in Baltimore or Fred Warner in San Francisco. I'm not saying they're better than him, those two guys, but his impact was felt this year for sure. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence has been injured the last 4 weeks. He's been hurt the last 4 weeks in a shoulder. I think that's an unfair conversation about him. They didn't have him for the last 4 weeks, and they played him in the last week, and he was still banged up. Trevor Lawrence is hurt. Oh, Lawrence is regressing. He's been hurt for a month. Purdy on a better offense than Brady ever had. And Montana. They can't stop me. And Montana. And Montana. I won't address that. I don't even know what that means. On Purdy, on Brady, on early teams, he would be Mac Jones. Yes. Like, there's no question. Tone brought this up. Like, you can't put Brock Purdy in Las Vegas and think he's going to win. Absolutely not. But then again, I saw Jalen Hurts with Quez Watkins and that Brett Covey guy, and that didn't look good either. So let's get it twisted. There's very few guys that can carry their clubs when guys go down. And Brock Purdy's not one of them. I'm not telling you that guy can carry a ball team. He can't. We saw a 3-game losing streak. Okay? Did he really? No, he couldn't have broke. Did he break Montana's passing record? Is that correct? Brock Purdy broke Joe Montana's singles. Yeah, you know what, though? At the end of the day, Joe's got 4 Super Bowls, so I don't know. You can have the passing record. I'll take the 4 rings, 4-0. You understand that Joe Montana is, in the NFL world, what Michael Jordan is in the basketball world. He's 4-0. And he never threw a pick in a Super Bowl. And he's got 136 quarterback rating. 14 touchdowns, no picks, and he beat Marino and Elway in them Super Bowls. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about playing against Nick Foles here. We're talking about playing against Hall of Fame quarterbacks and destroying them. Okay? Montana never lost a Super Bowl. Actually, Montana's one of the greatest big game quarterbacks of all time. I think I've told you this story before. Tone, you'll love this. Show you what a guy, when it comes to metal. Montana's sitting there, man. And I'm on the sidelines. Kevin Fagan got me tickets. It's in Miami. And I've told some of you this story. John Candy standing on the sidelines. Randy Cross said it too. And so did a bunch of guys in the O-line. Told me the story. And they go like this. There's a minute 42 left in the game. They get an illegal procedure. They're back on the 10. They got to go 90 with like a minute 13 or minute 30 left. Montana looks over and goes, look at that, John Candy. Everyone looked at him. Everyone in the huddle, Harris Barton, everyone goes like this. They look at Montana. He goes, we got this. Montana goes down the side. Boom, boom, boom. Taylor back at the end zone. 20 seconds left. He wins Super Bowl number 4. Walks off the field. Go. 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 Montana versus Brady in a Super Bowl. I'm going to take Joe. I know. Showing my age. But I'm going to take a guy who's never lost. And I'm going to take a guy who was the guy. Montana was the guy. Can you imagine Joe Montana with Jerry Rice? And hey, Tone, could you imagine Montana with Jerry Rice in today's rules where you couldn't touch Jerry Rice? The 49ers would never lose. I played against them guys. It was insane. It was sick. It was absolutely sick how good those two were. Strength of era matters too. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, Sixer. That's right. Montana had to play against LT and Reggie White. You're right. There ain't no Reggie White and LTs in today's game. And Ronnie Lott. Okay. Ain't none of them guys. Angelo Cataldi will join us. Angelo predicted. He did. He predicted that the Eagles would lose to the Giants in the Meadowlands. He's coming up at the bottom of the hour. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Turn up the yo.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut and Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
So I saw Miles Jack playing for the Steelers on Saturday, and he had 6 tackles in that game against the Ravens. And I was thinking to myself, and I watched him play, and I know that he had retired when the Eagles tried to bring him in and do some stuff with him. And I was thinking to myself, I'm watching Miles Jack play, and I'm like, he's all over the field. And there he was playing for Mike Tomlin. You know what the real zeal goes? Ravens second string. Are you under the impression the Steelers had some sort of high-powered offense? Hey, by the way, do you miss Isaac Seumalo? Holy cow. He must have had 3 pancakes in that game. He put 3 dudes on their back. Wow. Isaac Seumalo put dudes on their back. Martindale just resigned. Would he be good? Again, Antoine, you have to remember something when you talk about guys like Martindale or any quality coach. Okay? Or any quality coach. Would it fit the Eagle mentality? No chance is right. They're not hiring anybody that would question, or they would have hired Denard Wilson. They had the guy in the building who they had in the building. You think they're just all of a sudden going to magically float down in? Hey, man, you know what? I got to tell you something. I really would like to know a little more about that whole Vic Fangio mess, and if it really was Gannon's fault or it was Howie's fault. It just seems weird now, knowing what we know and watching Jonathan Gannon coach the pants off of Nick Sirianni. I really would like to know more about that. It just seems, let me ask you something here about Jalen Hurts here. Oh, by the way, one thing I will say about the Dolphins, the cheap Rolex was on display last night, and the phony Rolex was playing last night. Dude, did they beat any good teams? Can they beat any good teams? Until you beat a good team, you're a fake Rolex. I mean, that's like Olex. They're just a fake Rolex. You go down to Little Havana, and you go down there where my friend Armando Salguero goes from Outkick and from the Miami Herald. He goes down there to the Tropicana flea market, and he buys one of them phony Rolexes. That's what the Miami Dolphins are. You go to one of them flea markets and buy one of them phony Rolexes. Angelo Cataldi is going to join us in a couple minutes at the bottom of the hour here. Tua's limited. Dude, honestly, when I watch Josh Allen step on a field versus guys like Tagovailoa, I go, okay, that doesn't look like that. And I will say this, and I agree with you guys. He's got to protect the ball, man. He's got to be better at that. But he still wins. But that's going to kill him in the end in winning Super Bowls if he doesn't fix that. Think about this. You know what you have to do to a guy like Josh Allen? You have to pull that guy off the ledge for destroying himself because he's so great. You don't have to push him to the edge. He plays on the edge. And last night he won his 4th straight AFC championship since he's been the starting quarterback in Buffalo. 4 straight titles. I mean, you're starting to get to Brady. Remember, Brady didn't win a Super Bowl until what, his 3rd year, was it? Oh, no, it was an MVP award. He didn't win one until his 9th year, I think. Okay? Sills, do you think Nolan Smith is being held back in the same way I don't know what they do defensively. Gary Cobb brought something up that I can't believe that I'm listening to. Why did you turn? Guys, I want to show you something. And this to show you the incompetence of the coaching and what they're doing now with Matt Patricia. And Gary pointed this out. So let me show you this. I'm going to show you the triangle. Okay. Center is the X, and the 2 boxes are the guards. When you were getting proper production out of Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, you were doing this. I'll put J. Carter, and then I'll do this, JD. That's a 1 technique and a 3 technique. You're playing on shades. You're 1-gapping, which means get up the field, use your athleticism. Get to the back. Make a play. Get penetration. Get to the back. Create havoc. That's why your run defense was so good. Because they moved the line of scrimmage. Here's what they're doing now. It's criminal what you're doing to Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. And they're totally not buying it because they didn't play this in college. JD, JC. Okay. You're playing these two guys now at 2-gap. Do you know what they're doing? This is a Belichick system. Do you know what this is? This is the free linebacker play up. Your trash can linebackers, Matt Patricia wants to make plays. Instead of the two guys you drafted in the first round, the philosophical defense and the mentality is backwards. Your assets are in your D tackles, not your trash can linebackers. Why in the world would you want Nicholas Morrow, Zach Cunningham, or some of these other guys to make plays when they can't? You were effective when you were in a 31 front or a 4-3 with shades. Gary said they're 2-gapping now. I'm going to take a look at that tonight. You have neutered Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and the strengths that they bring. You ask the question, why hasn't Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, maybe they're out of gas? No. You're asking them to 2-gap, to be a fire hydrant, to be a slug and not make plays. That's why they haven't made plays. They're technically lining them up not to make plays. I 2-gapped. I never 2-gapped in my life until I got to the pros. And I could not believe what a horrible defense. I was a 3 technique and a 1 technique. Jerome and I were 3-1. Sometimes he'd be a 3. Sometimes I'd be a 3, or we would shade, get up the field, move the line of scrimmage, get penetration, play the run, linebacker scraping. You have turned Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, and you have neutered those two guys the same way you've neutered Jalen Hurts. Hey, you're not going to get any production. That's why they're running the ball. These guys aren't 2-gap guys. Ever since Seattle, the run defense has gotten worse. And this goes back to philosophical beliefs. How does Howie and those guys look at the coaching staff and not go, why are we doing that with our tackles? Your 2 tackles are the best players along with Reddick on the field. You've basically made them non-factors. That's why your defense can't stop anybody. The one asset that you had were those 2 good DTs. Now you made them poor. Thank you, Chris. I had a pretty good guy next to me. Barb, yeah, Angelo's coming on at 5:30 Eastern. Here's a guy that predicted that the Eagles would lose to the Giants in the final game in the Meadowlands. I didn't think that they would surrender like that. Okay? I didn't think they'd surrender and just quit the way they quit. Hey, Robert, it's one thing to have 2-gappers. If you have Greenlaw and you have Fred Warner, or you have Queen and you have Roquan Smith. It's another thing when you've got guys that you signed off the street. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But nothing they've done. 10-1, 10-2, 10-3. All you guys getting mad at me when I'm ripping a team that was 10-1. How you feel now? I saw the same shit, 10-1. I didn't think they'd surrender, though, like they did in that Giant game. Yeah, why would you hope that a guy in the Kobe Dean who's never played would pick that up, play it, and no, because they thought he'd be in the two-gap linebacker? And so they would keep him off him? Probably so. Dude, they're going to start. Hey, you want to hear something? Sorry to tell you this. Howie Roseman's going to start the 2024 season when the Kobe Dean is the Mike linebacker on the depth chart. You can guarantee that. Okay? You can guarantee that. What do you think the chances in the Kobe Dean being first team on the depth chart when the first depth charts come out when they have OTAs and they have like mini camps? What do you think the chances that are? And you know what you're going to hear? Oh, the guy looks great. Oh, the guy looks super. Oh, the guy looks wonderful. Oh, he looks like a world beater. Oh, yeah, he looks great. Yeah, helmets and shorts, everyone looks great. Okay? Let me ask you this about Jalen. When does Mr. Company Guy ask for help? When does he ask for help? Who does he go to? Does he go to Howie? Does he go to Nick? Or does he go to the owner? Who do you go to? His agent? Nicole Lynn? That could be a start. Nicole Lynn's got a great reputation. And the organization may be open to talking to her because of other contract deals she may end up doing down the line. And Nicole has to be respectful of that. Okay? Remember, agents have other clients in their portfolio. And so they're not just going to sit there and shit on somebody. And an organization, they can't burn bridges. If you're a good agent, you don't burn bridges because you have multiple clients that you've got to do deals with. So you've got to be careful. So maybe you start there. Nicole calls up Howie. Hey, what are we going to do with offensive coordinator? We have some ideas. Would they be that bold to want to bring in somebody that Jalen may want to trust? Brady did it. Remember that stuff with Guerrero, Tom House, how that rubbed everybody in New England the wrong way? They still allowed it early because he was winning Super Bowls. Right? What would Deuce bring to Jalen? Nothing. Or nothing to do with Deuce and Jalen Hurts. I want somebody that's a great OC around him. I want someone that can develop him and have autonomy to move the sticks and develop him. Deuce Staley, because he's an Eagle, doesn't make him a good fit. This has to do with fit also. Okay? This has to do with fit. It has to be something that fits both parties. As long as the suits keep dictating play calling, that's pretty much the case here. Run as the last resort. The zero blitz is all. Hey, Alex, good stuff there. That's good stuff, Alex. That's correct. This has got to come, as we said, in the first hour, in the first block. This has got to come from ownership. And ownership's zest to have all the power and make sure that they have all the control is why you're in this position. Get this. You were 10-1 with an opportunity, and your employees quit on you. Any company, the CEO would be called in by the board of directors and asked why the company is losing money. Nick Sirianni falls into that category as well. He's the CEO of this, and he's got to ask an answer to this. And you know what he's going to say? Well, this information is from you guys. That's when it starts. And that's when those guys start their positioning on getting rid of him. I'm going to tell you this. Right now, I don't believe, and I disagree with some people, but I disagree they want to get rid of him. Okay? But I do agree. If this thing looks even worse against the Buccaneers, I do think you're going to start to get into a position where, make no mistake about it, you're going to see the handwriting begin on the wall here like you did with Doug Peterson. And there's going to be an adversarial relationship. And then you're going to have to start keeping control of the moves that Howie makes. And you're going to keep an eye on all that stuff because their actions will tell you whether or not they're going to go forward with him or not. Okay? There's no question. But Jalen has got to step up and be a leader here. Okay? Got to step up. How about this? Think about something here. Doug Peterson's turning a train wreck around in Jacksonville. Nick Sirianni just was in a Super Bowl, and they're talking of firing him. Who do you think is in a better position? Who do you think right now is in a better position, Doug or Nick? Who do you think? Who do you think is in a better? Who will have their job in 5 years? Nick? 2 years? Nick? Or Doug? Nick may not have his job Tuesday morning. How you doing? How you doing? See if we can get Angelo on here. I'm sure my guy Tone's working on him. Forward. Nick could lose his job Tuesday. How you doing? That's all right. Yeah, okay. I got you, Tone. It's all good. I'll be here in a minute. How you doing? Playoff picture. Before we get Angie on. Niners 1, 12-5. Cowboys 2, 12-5. Detroit's in the 3 hole at 12-5. The Bucks are in the 4 hole, 9-8. Win the South. And there's Philly limping in, 11-6. The Rams playing great ball, 10-7. Green Bay playing great ball, 9-8. Your weekend games, Green Bay at Dallas. Rams at Detroit. Philly at Tampa Bay Monday night. It's just inevitable. AFC Baltimore 13-4. Harbaughs are going to be gods by the end of maybe this season. Both of them could win championships, which is insane. Buffalo in the 2 hole, 11-6. Hey, who would have thought that the Buffalo game against the Eagles did more for them than the Buffalo game did for the Eagles? After that game, they were never the same. Once Dallas and San Francisco got a hold of you, you were never the same, especially after Buffalo put 505 on you. You were never the same. Think about that. The Buffalo Bills put 500 yards on you. That's crazy. KC 11-6. Houston, 10-7. Cleveland, 11-6. Miami, again, the fake Rolex, 11-6. And there's Mike Tomlin, 10-7. Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Miami at Kansas City. Cleveland at Houston. Let me say something about Doug and the job that he's doing. He's doing a masterful job in Jacksonville. Masterful. You're talking about turning around one of the worst organizations since it's been in the NFL. You're not talking about a brand. You're talking about an off-brand. How many years in the last 10 years have the Jacksonville Jaguars been in the top 5 in drafting picks and drafting in the draft? How many years have they been in the top 5 picks? 2 decades? 3 decades? And you've got to go in there and change that culture around. Absolutely one of the greatest coaching jobs on the planet. Now, Lawrence has got to be healthy. They'll continue to win. And again, not a shocker he didn't have a losing season because that's just who he is. Doug Peterson's doing a hell of a job in Jacksonville. Hell of a job. I mean, can you imagine Doug with the talent that if you had that same talent, for Trevor Lawrence, not that ETN's back, Calvin Ridley. It just shows you, man. Coaching, environment, everything comes down to ownership. This is a Jeffrey Lurie problem. You guys want to pick the coach. The guy's a cheerleader. He's a freaking cheerleader. I told you that. Angelo told you that. I'm going to bring him on here in a second, but I want to say this to you. 4th and 4. New Rockne decides to go for it. Okay? Why in the world? Why in the world would you not kick it? Why wouldn't you? And make them have to go. And make them have to go 90 yards. I'll tell you something, man. This man, I've got a favor to ask him here in a second as soon as we get him up. Here's the book.
I can't. I'm not hearing.
Can you hear us, Angelo?
Not hearing. Can't hear.
Hear us?
No hearing. No sound.
No sound.
No sound on my end, Dan.
Okay. We hear you.
No sound.
Okay. Let's see if we can try to connect that again here because, let's see here. I mean, we hear him. Let's see if we can try to reconnect here. Angelo, yeah, you don't hear me? Let's try it again one more time here, Tone.
Testing.
Can you hear us?
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
Okay. Hey, Tone, why don't we take a timeout and see if we can connect this? Can we do that, Tone? Do you want to do that? Let's take a timeout and see if we can connect this. Let's take a timeout. All right. Keep it here, National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Big Sills here, National Football Show. We appreciate everybody coming aboard. Please hit the like button. Fantastic. Fantastic. The voice of reason. They're trying to shut him down. They could never shut down Angelo Cataldi. Here is the Bible of Philly sports. I'm going to start calling loud the Bible for Philadelphia sports talk. Angelo, there's only one request that I have. My wife would like you to do this for me. Can you please pick some lottery numbers and some Powerball numbers for me? Because you predicted that the Eagles would lose to the Giants in the Meadowlands. Can you please pick us some Powerball numbers?
I just gotta say it's a depressing day. By the way, that book you were holding, I started doing the audio book today, right?
Oh, that's fantastic.
I did 4.5 hours in a studio. Be careful what you wish for. I was begging for them to do it. Now I'm going, oh my God, I'm working again. I got to do this all week until I get through the book. Oh my God. But the real story, I was in the city today. A cloud is hovering over the city of Philadelphia now as we brace for one last embarrassment next Monday night against Tampa. And when that happens, and I see no way it cannot happen based on the defensive performance against the Giants in the first half. When that happens, put on a helmet because it's going to be a contact sport around here for a few weeks. I'm telling you, Dan, I have never seen a coach lose the support of a city faster or more spectacularly than Nick Sirianni has in the past 2 months. I've never seen it. It's unprecedented. They're now calling what we're witnessing right now with this Eagles team from 10-1 to this, 10-1 to this. The worst collapse in Philadelphia sports history since 1964, when the Phillies blew a 6.5 game lead with 10 to go. And I'm telling you, this is not a forgiving city. I don't think there's a chance Sirianni survives if he loses next Monday night. I think he's gone. And I think he should be gone. I think he should be gone if he wins and loses the next week, which he will, against either the Cowboys or the Niners, or whoever they face. Are you watching the defense?
I couldn't believe how they just quit.
Do they look like any of them even know where to be on the field?
No.
Did you see the offense when there was a Wink Martindale blitz? Did they seem to have any idea what to do about it?
No. They had no answers.
Coaching. It's all coaching. Coaching. I don't know. Maybe Nick Sirianni got lobotomized sometime in October or early November. Whatever it is, Dan, it's almost like no one's coaching the team now. And then he comes out after games and talks about everybody's 0-0 now. And I believe in my team because of the fight in that locker room. And you're going, we're watching the same games you are. They've checked out.
Could you believe how much it was 2 minutes into the game and the body language. The game was 10-0 Washington in the first, and then it was 10-7 middle of the second. They waved a white flag, and they didn't have Fletcher playing. They played some of the other guys. It was almost like they were half in. Then they decided to wave the flag. Dude, if you were going to just concede the East, you should have did it all out in the beginning, concede the East. I'm telling you, Angelo, I've never seen a nuclear meltdown like this in my entire life. None
of us have.
As a player or covering it, I've never seen this.
So I'm watching the coach for his explanation for what you just described, because he checked out. He took out, Hurts went back in, then came out for good. He checked out, took out his starters. And he said at the time, the Cowboys, that was still a game that the Eagles could end up with a 2 seed. The Cowboys were only ahead by 4.
Yeah.
But I looked at our team, and we were down 24-0. And I decided to do it. In other words, he didn't think his team could beat the Giants, who were playing for nothing with their backup quarterback.
With a half left of football.
And he said, no, I'm knowing when to fold them. What's he saying about his own team? He's saying, I didn't think there was any way we could score 24 points. Well, then how are you even in the playoffs? How bad do you think your own team is if you quit?
How about this, Angelo? But will it matter if you fire him Tuesday when you have the same philosophical mentality?
No, you're right.
Aren't they going to just hire Nick Sirianni 2.0 on Wednesday?
That's the fun I'm having on my emails. I've been deluged with emails the past few days. They want Belichick.
That would never happen.
They want Jim Harbaugh, right?
That would never happen.
And that's the whole point. Yeah, if you got a strong coach in there, the owner and the GM aren't going to be able to just pull the strings. And they don't want that. So you're 100% right. Unless they change the philosophy, unless this is so embarrassing. What we witnessed the past 7 weeks has been unprecedented. If it's so embarrassing, it gets Jeff Lurie, the owner, and Howie Roseman, the GM, to say, we got to get a strong coach in here. And we got to let him do his job. Unless they say that, this is a cycle that will continue to repeat itself.
You know what, Angelo? He has shown that, though. Chip was just the wrong hire.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
But he did go, and when Chip goes, this guy needs to get out of my room, he moved him to the broom closet.
Yeah.
So to me, when does it get to that point for the owner to go like this? Because to me, I think the only guy in that building that doesn't have guardrails is Howie Roseman.
Yes.
He's the only guy. So does he put guardrails on him? Because look at the last 3 drafts. Name me one player that they've drafted in the last 3 drafts that they've gotten anything out of when it comes to production on the field.
Well, they thought they had the big guys in the middle of the defensive line.
You know what Gary Cobb said today? You know what Gary Cobb said? He goes like this. Cobb goes, you see what they're doing since Patricia's been the coach? I go, no. He goes, they're playing the 2 guys in 2 gap now. I'm like, what? So they moved these guys off of shades, 3 and a 1, like Reggie and Jerome used to play, getting penetration, getting in the backfield, getting up the field, getting pressure, to doing this, playing slug football, 2-gapping, so their shitty linebackers can make plays, and they have trash can line. Matt Patricia's made the defense worse.
He did, which was almost impossible, and he did it. Matt Patricia is like having a disease You have to cut the tumor out. He's killing the team. There's no doubt about it. All right. But Nick Sirianni is the head coach. You would stand by and watch this happen. All these weeks that have gone by, you wouldn't intercede. You wouldn't get involved. You wouldn't go, forget it, guys. I'll do it now. I'll do it.
Because those guys up above
well,
pulling the strings.
Well, then he should. I know what I would do. I'd go into that office and I'd say, it's them or it's me.
Yep.
You decide. I'll walk out today. You can get a different coach for the playoffs.
There's a better, and get this. Think about this, Angelo, at the end of it. If you're Nick Sirianni, they're going to pull a Doug Peterson and go, hey, we want to pull these coaches in here. And if you don't really have and don't like these changes, we want to know your opinion. And that's kind of how they started the revolving chain to go outside the door for Doug. And that's how they'll start that for him. Well, we decided to part ways because Nick didn't want to go down with the changes. Maybe that's how they end up getting rid of him. When at the end of the day here, I don't think Nick has that kind of leverage in the building because Doug won the Super Bowl.
But Dan, they don't have to justify anything. Look what you're seeing. You have to coach. If a coach has 2 months to fix a problem this egregious, and he has done nothing to fix it, is he not announcing to the world, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no clue. You could see how far that Hurts has regressed when Steichen left as offensive coordinator. Hurts is not the same player.
He looks like Baker Mayfield.
Defense, my God, the two guys they've used on defense, the defense has never been worse than it is right now. Never in anyone's memory have they been this futile with that amount of talent on the field.
How about this, Angelo?
It's coaching.
Angelo, what is a worse meltdown? Chip or this?
Oh, this is worse than Kotite. Kotite was 7-2. Kotite was 7-2 in 1995, and he went 0-7 in the final 7 games and got 5, right? But we kind of knew that was going in that direction. Kotite was a moron, all right? Sirianni has now established that he is in the Kotite level to me. Oh, yeah, I know. He won 11 games this year. I watched how he won 11. It was a one fluke after another. I went on San Francisco radio when they were 10-1, and I said they're the worst 10-1 NFL team in its history. If you watched the games, you knew they weren't that good. They were already losing it. And then, wow, the wheels came off. And now you're in crisis. So maybe, I won't rule out, 100% rule out, as Nostradamus, I will not rule out that they will suddenly find their footing somewhat and make it a game next Monday night. But I doubt they're going to win it. And I doubt Sirianni can survive this. If Sirianni survives this, let me say this. I know enough about the city. And I was with, I watched the game with yesterday? The 3 best callers I ever had in my life. Kenny from the Dirty 30, Arson Arnie, and Eagle Shirley. All right? I watched it with. It was so bad that after it was 24-0, and they threw, Mariota came in and he threw a bubble screen. What else are they called? Yeah. Was picked off. Eagles Shirley, the heart and soul of the fan base of the Eagles, laughed.
Wow.
She laughed. And I went, what? And she said, what else can I do at this point? I don't even know how to react to that. She didn't. She lives for this stuff. And she couldn't believe it. If they bring Sirianni back, no matter who they dress up around him, they're screwed. He has lost the city and most likely the locker room. He has to go. I don't even think he can survive a win on Monday night and a slaughter the next week against a great team, one of the great teams. I don't even think then, Dan, that he could get through this. He doesn't know how to coach. If he had any idea how to coach, he would have done something about this.
How come they're so How come they're so not able to have constructive criticism
Oh,
I've never seen a coach do Newt Rockne speeches
oh my
after you're
God.
killed.
It's
And you're in a
embarrassing.
city like Philly that when something doesn't look good and it smells rotten, you tell them it's rotten. You don't tell them, hey, here's the
Exactly.
old college try.
Exactly. And it showed you he doesn't even have enough creativity to read the audience and say to himself, well, I can't keep selling this baloney. Nobody's buying this crap. Well, they're watching what I'm watching. We're seeing him on the sideline. No more joking around and none of that now. Now he's like, whoa, what's going on? He doesn't even look like he knows what's going on. Damn. I've never seen anything like this.
You think he's the worst coach the Eagles have had in 30 years since Kotai?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
And I think that, and I know you're going to say, what? He made the playoffs. 3 years he made the playoffs. And I'm going to say, and then Steichen left. And what happened then?
I'm going to give you a comparison of when you knew that a coach wasn't who he was. Do you remember a guy named George Seifert? Remember Seifert?
Oh, yeah.
All the great records he had when
San
he was
Francisco.
in
Yeah.
San Francisco. They won a Super Bowl. He was there. He had a 15-1. He gets the job in Carolina, goes 1-15. And here's a guy with one of the best win percentages in the history of the NFL with a Super Bowl ring. And he should be in the conversation for being in Canton. Instead, he was exposed in Carolina when the talent wasn't around him because he couldn't do anything to get out of his way. That's kind of what you have here a little bit with Nick. He's not who that record is.
No, he is not. And that can happen if you insulate him with the right people for a while, but not forever. Eventually, the truth will happen. And what happened here was, I now am positive of this. Steichen was the brains of the operation. He knew what he was doing. He got the best out of Hurts. He must have also offered some input into defense because I'm unwilling to tell you Gannon knew what he was doing. I won't give up. I won't give up on
You're
that.
not surrendering that one, are you?
That defense still wasn't good last year. They certainly blew the Super Bowl. But my goodness, Sirianni, here's the great irony of what we're witnessing right now. This is hilarious how we come full circle. You remember right after Sirianni got hired, he held a news conference that was an absolute disaster. He couldn't speak. He couldn't get sentences out. People were going insane in Philadelphia going, oh my God, this guy's a moron. There's no way he could be the coach. And everyone knew how he got the job, that basically he outweighted all the guys with more experience. And he went in and basically told the bosses, I'll do whatever you need. I'm a puppet. And they went, oh, this is our guy. Grab him. Let's do it. We now are back, all the way back around, Dan,
to that first
guy
press
who did the
conference.
first news conference.
Yep.
That's who we got. Doesn't have a clue what he's doing, and he doesn't. Yeah, you don't even need to watch him coach. Listen to him talk. Just listen to the garbage he said after yesterday's game, and tell me that's a guy who's got a handle on this situation.
No, I think he's a fraud, and I don't think he's trustworthy.
You're right. There's going to be a lot of backlash when they fire him because the guy made the playoffs. He was 10-1. What are you doing? I was watching the games. I'm sorry. Next time I won't watch the games.
Does he make it past Friday next week if he loses?
No. He's going Tuesday next week. He's fired. They lose. Let's say they lose 24-16, something like that, a touchdown or more.
And the Bucs are better than the Giants.
Yeah, I know that. And what do they do a lot? They blitz.
and here, get this too. On the way out here, get this. Mayfield's thrown for 4,000 yards and 28 touchdowns. Rashid White's got 1,000 yards pretty much. And he's got 64 catches for 550. And they got 2,000-yard wide receivers. You telling me you think that defense, which couldn't beat Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Tyrod Taylor, and they couldn't beat a 3-win Cardinal team, you're telling me you're going to beat Todd Bowles and them guys? I don't see it, Angelo.
No, and here's the thing. They didn't score a touchdown yesterday against Carolina, a 2-15 team. But you know what? They're facing a much weaker defense than they did against Carolina.
That's right.
Next Monday night.
That's right. Carolina's got a better
crazy it
defense.
is.
That's
The
right.
Eagles are the worst defense in the National Football League right now. Right now, they're the worst. And when Mike Evans, when all those guys from the Buccaneers look at that, they're going to go, "Uh-oh, this should be fun," and it will be for them. And you know what, Dan? I'm good with it. I'm good. The Eagles now, I have lost all hope for this season. All hope. Zero. I have no hope.
With Bob Lang.
I would rather they lose next Monday night and Sirianni gets what he deserves. Boom. Done.
Would Bob Lang be on the phone?
Done.
Would Bob Lang be on the phone right now?
Oh, Bob, Bob, call me on my cell phone. I'll tell you what I really think.
The Philadelphia Sports Bible, loud. Our good friend Angelo Cataldi. Thank you so
Soon out
much.
in audiobook.
What's that?
Soon it will be out in audiobook.
Can't wait. Ange, we got one more week. And
All right.
if that thing happens
Next Tuesday,
next Tuesday,
I will dress in all black and I'll be the mortician. And then I will say, what's correct?
Thank you, Angelo.
See you, Danny. Be good, buddy.
That's my friend, Angelo Cataldi. How about that? He said that Sirianni. Tone, he said that Sirianni's a worse coach than Kotai. All right. Joe, Xander, thank you. Tone, wow. Jaws is either on tomorrow or Wednesday. I can't wait to see how this week plays out. Don't forget, 2 to 6 tomorrow, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.